Good morning. Hopefully you can hear me. Somebody say yes or no there. Well, I can hear myself now, so. All right. Good morning, Tina McNeil. Clarky, good to see you. Are you on the road this morning already? That's probably a dumb question. You've probably been on the road or ready to get off the road. James Ryan, good morning, sir, my friend and colleague, and someday personal guide to the new Disney World. Oops, I got somebody in my ears. Hang on. How is everyone this morning? I feel pretty good so far. Hey, buddy. Carol, can you see your screen? Or are you traveling? You have a friend here. I'm not going to ask him to come online though, until I know you're around. Hey, Billy. Good morning. Good to see you. You can see? Okay. Come here, buddy. Oh. Look here. No, hang on a minute. I woke him up. He's not happy. Say hi to Carol. Miss Carol's online. You have to say good morning. Come on. He was in a deep nap. Mr. Ron, where are you headed this morning? Are you just out running errands? All right, hop down. He's just feisty when you wake him up out of a deep sleep. Or feisty's not the right word. Grumpy's the better word. Okay, again, I guess I am too. She said, "You're the real star." And you got down. He said, "Thanks." I think he's going to go back to sleep, though. I wish I could sleep like that. He's almost gone already. I just put him back down. James Ryan, I have a difficult time imagining you looking like a barbarian. Although I got my hair cut too, I was starting to look like my old hippie self from when I was much younger. It took me a while we just didn't get around to cutting my hair. But now it's short, my beard's short, kind of my summer do, I guess. Good morning, Dean. Are you following the happy? Yeah, Tina, you're right. He not only does he sleep a lot, but I mean he can just drop off like that. And he's got so many places he can get comfortable in. I wish I could sleep half as comfortably as he does. So, Billy, how are things at the Kinsey Day home? Kinsey Day's home. We got Billy, Kinsey Day's mom, and Tracy, Kinsey Day's dad, and Matt, Kinsey Day's boyfriend. And we got Kinsey Days of Kinsey Days. I'll hang around for a minute. I'm not going to go anywhere, but I'm going to talk just a little bit after I see if anybody else shows up. Hey, Pearl. I'm batching for the day. My spouse is going to see her mom today. She's driving up the road. She's on the road now, somewhere between here and Johnson City. She may be tuned in on the road. I'm not sure if she was going to try to or not. Let me see if she sent me anything. I think Chris will be here in a few minutes. Oh, your cat and your dog. Actually, I think I knew you got a black lab. I'm not sure about the cat, right, Billy? Pearl, you're up awfully early this morning. Hang on, I think I forgot to send Chris the link. Let me fix that real quick. Well, maybe I can fix that right here. Oh no, I have to fix that over here. Mm-hmm. Bear with me, folks. I pulled a Tim this morning. Let me see if I can correct it without too much stress. I bet you guys heard that too. I need to turn that down, don't I? All right, I think I got him squared away. He'll probably be in here in a bit. Who else has shown up? Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. Jasmine is the lab, and Gray Cat is Boots. Is the Gray Cat male or female, Billy? Yep, he does, Tina. I forgot to send it to him. My brain was on fade, I guess, this morning. There he is. Let's get him in here, folks. There's his
Hey, brother.
Hey there, Chris. Good morning.
Good morning.
Sorry about that. I forgot to send you the link.
No, that's okay. Like, uh-oh.
Yeah, that's just the kind of thing I would do. Anywho.
So you're batching it today, huh?
I am batching it today for a while.
When do we get the party started?
The party started. That's funny. Anytime. I can start at any time now.
All right, I'll invite a few people.
Okay, come on down. I had to promise I wouldn't try to go up and down the stairs too many times today. Well, Billy, we've got an old male cat my daughter found in the dumpster behind the restaurant she worked in after high school, and he's about 20 now. So, and he's still going pretty good. He's thin. He's kind of a bag of bones. He eats all the time, but he never has been very big, to be honest. He's always been small.
Morning, Pearl.
Yep. We've got a few people here. Well, there's T. Marie. Tina, I thought you were busy this morning. You are such a... no, you weren't busy this morning. I do realize, folks, that maybe it was Tina, but I do realize that Monarch Moments, or at least Melissa, is on with Carlos this morning. So if anybody wants to jump over and say hi, by all means do so. Don't let me keep you. When I set this thing up originally, I was telling somebody last night that I didn't really mean to come in the same time Carlos did. I was sort of trying to make a spot when Josh and Triple P and Lynn, the Lynn Project weren't on while they were off the air for a while. And then I realized later that not jumping out of a cake. Wait a minute. Now, how did that who came up with that idea? Anyway, I know Melissa's on over there this morning, so feel free to jump over there and say hi, or don't let me keep you. So, did somebody say Mike and Val were in here? Oh, they are. Good morning, Mike or Val or both. I didn't see you guys pop in. Well, thank you, Tina. I appreciate that. Had a great time on Tina's stream this week on Chris's birthday night. I guess that was Tuesday, wasn't it? You have to forgive me. I've slept since then. The fourth. Yeah.
Oh, I know. Sometimes it's you tend to forget what you had for breakfast by the time the evening comes around. So
yeah, well, I'm getting to the point where I do good to remember the things I remember. So some of the other momentary stuff just kind of comes and goes.
Right.
But since we've got a few more people in here, I did want to take time. I know you do, Tina. I didn't take it that way, although I could let it go to my head and think, wow, Tina's in here for me, which would be pretty cool. I wanted to, so I didn't get busy and yakking and forget, I wanted to make sure that I'm kind of doing this, or I want to pay homage to all the mothers out there in the room. I know that some or most of the ladies in the room have children or have had children, maybe grown, maybe still young. Tina, I know, has got a couple of small ones, and my girls are, it's not about me. My wife's actually on the road today to go see her mother, who lives about 100 miles east of here. So she's on the road right now, and I'm sure others are like me, have lost their mothers, have passed, but we still pay honor to all mothers. I mean, I can't imagine what the world would be like without mothers. So I had a friend of mine one time explain to me that he said people think men run the world, but he said when you really think about it, he said mothers have a lot more to do with it than just men, because mothers raise the children, historically at least, in this country. He said, so if you think about it, who teaches them right and wrong, and who teaches them the things they should do or shouldn't do? And he said that was mothers. So he felt like mothers should have a much higher place in society. And I agree with him there. We've been too long pushing women to the side or pushing them to the second position. I don't know how to explain that and make it sound right, but anyway,
we've been sort of treating women as inferior when in so many cases they're far superior.
Yeah, don't say that too loud though. They'll take our place. No, and I don't mean that. I'm kidding, guys. Dean, you may be just a tiny bit biased. It is the truth, Tina McNeil. I mean, well, I'm not sure which part you're saying is the truth, but Mike still acts like a child. He said it drives Val nuts. Well, that's how it goes. That's just part of being. Ooh, should I say that's just part of being male? It may be. I don't know if that's a good thing to say. I mean, so anyway, I wanted to say that before I fooled around and forgot, and I would probably do that because I get started on things and get lost in the conversation, as you guys have probably figured out by now. But so, if your mothers are around, thank them tomorrow, or hopefully you'll get to talk to them on the phone or see them. And if they're not, then may they rest in peace. And I'm sure they did their job and are missed very much. My mother's been gone now. I believe this is the 3rd year. And if I had been a little bit more fit, I would have ridden up she's also in the same town my wife's going to. Her and my dad both are buried at the VA cemetery. So, which is something I didn't know. I don't know. We'll go down a morbid path here, but wives of veterans can be buried with their husbands at some VA centers, at least. And so my wife and my wife, no, she's not buried yet. Don't anybody spread that rumor. But my mom and dad are both buried at the VA Mountain Home VA Center in Johnson City, Tennessee. So,
Yeah, up here at the Lincoln National Cemetery, it's the same way.
yeah, that's probably a national thing since they are national cemeteries. I just didn't know they did that until, well, I really didn't know it until Mom passed away. I found out when we were making arrangements. But anyway, I don't want to, we should celebrate mothers. I don't want to bring the room down in any bad way. I mean, I had a lot of good years with my mom, and for a lot of those years, she and I had a lot of fun together. I'm sure she could probably say that some of those weren't so fun, but we did. And so anyway,
shout out to all the moms out there.
That's right. That's right. So thank you, moms, the ones that are here and the ones that aren't here right now, and all the ones on YouTube. Try to remember that today and tomorrow. I guess we were at Monarch Moments last night, Chris, and people brought up blimps, and I just thought we might talk about that for a minute this morning because they were I guess they're redoing the blimp, the hangar out there in I guess California that Garrett showed.
Yep, at Moffett.
Yeah, Moffett. A friend of mine for years worked up in Akron, Ohio, and he worked across from where the blimp hangars were up there. And those blimp hangars have been around for a long time. Oh, yeah. They may have even been where some of the rigid airships were built, like the Nord. I think was it Nords, the Macon. There was 3 or 4 of them actually built that the U.S. messed around with some. And unfortunately, I think they all met tragic ends in storms, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe one didn't. But those hangars were huge. I mean, he used to talk about going up there, and he had some friends. I think Goodyear may have actually had their airplanes in one of their blimp hangars that was still there. But the hangars were old; they'd been there for a long time, since the 20s or 30s, I guess.
I think they're doing a little bit of restoration on the one in Akron also. That's where Goodyear also built the Corsair.
Oh, was it? Were they those? Okay, well that makes sense. That makes sense. That's something a lot of people don't realize either, that how many different companies were involved in the war effort and built everything from planes to guns to tanks. But like Goodyear building airplanes, and then I know Ford Motor Company may have built airplanes too, but I know they built tanks. They just all kinds of stuff that got involved during the war. So
yeah, Ford built B-24s up at Ypsilanti, Michigan.
And I don't know if it was Chrysler. I'm not sure who was involved, but I'm pretty sure one of the automobile companies was involved. They built a plant down in I think it was Alabama, where they built B-29s also. Sort of a secret place. I think when they went to the trouble of building something to build war materials, I think they tried to hide them as best they could by building them in nondescript places.
Oh, they built an entire sort of a make-believe town over the Boeing plant up in the Seattle area. So you look directly above, and it just looks like the rest of the town. You can't even tell that there were work hangars.
It's pretty fascinating that
Yeah.
they did. But I guess that's what they do. I have another story I'll tell of one of my many yarns. And I was just telling my wife this. I was going to pull up I don't know if I can post this. I'll post the link. I don't know if I know how to post pictures. I worked for TVA before I retired. Some of you may know what that is. Probably a lot don't know what it was. But it was the Tennessee Valley Authority. And it was one of the New Deal programs that FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, started in the Depression. So one of the early things he got going in his presidency in 34, 35, 36. And of course, they were a federal agency. They weren't, but they were different. They were kind of set up as a federal corporation, which is probably why a lot of people didn't realize they were federal government. I was actually a federal employee. Tina says she remembers. Excuse me. Anyway, we had dams and reservoirs, and it was a water control project to control flooding in the Tennessee Valley. But it had so much more to do with a lot of other things, which I'll talk about someday maybe. But right now, what I was going to say, since we were talking about World War II a little bit, was the hangars and whatnot. Was they had some mountain reservoirs in the edge of Tennessee, North Carolina, Georgia area, and they actually were involved in torpedo testing for the U.S. Navy during World War II. When the war first started, the U.S. Navy didn't have any good torpedoes. They had torpedoes that they could fire out of their, submarines and torpedo boats and whatnot, but half the time they wouldn't go off. And it caused a lot of stress and heartache for, submariners and submariners and whatnot. But so they tested they started testing torpedoes in Hiwassee Reservoir here in Tennessee. And you can go there. I don't know if they do tours now. Lots of tours things have changed over the years because of 9/11 and whatnot. But the torpedo storage tubes and underground areas where they kept them and I guess worked on them and whatnot are still there. And but it's not something that was common knowledge for a long time. I don't know when it actually became public. It could have been right after the war, and I just didn't ever hear about it. But I looked it up after I learned about it, and it really happened. The water was deep enough for them to make some significant, I guess, depth runs, but they had long stretches where they could fire the torpedoes out thousands of yards or whatever and test them. And it was very secluded, especially back in the 40s. That whole mountain area where those lakes are was pretty remote. I mean, it's still kind of remote, to be honest. But there's, of course, a lot more tourists and things travel through there in that whole area. And there's bigger towns there now. But back in the 40s, it was still pretty remote. It was a little bit like Oak Ridge. They built Oak Ridge and not far from where I'm sitting right now, and kept it pretty much a secret until after the war. And well, thank you, Tina. I appreciate that. I guess that's what makes us a little bit different, or me different, and Chris when he's here too, is we both love Disney, but we also have some other topics of the discussion that we get involved in. I really try not to bore people with some of these stories, but at the same time, I find I've always been a history buff or fanatic or whatever you want to call it, and I've always found them fascinating. In fact, Carol, I don't know I'm not sure exactly where Carol is, but I know that Shelley Starwalker or Scott Starwalker, I always get that mixed up. Anyway, I know Shelley lives up near Mackinac, and that's another history. But I've been up there to the Mackinac Fort area and stuff once and spent some time up there a few days. And I just always liked history. So when I find out history about the agency I work for, then I'm fascinated by it. But that's just another one of those things that people did during the war effort to help out that most people never heard of or didn't know about, even though it was probably, 10 miles down the road from where they may have lived.
And I'd like to really expand my history too. I mean, I probably only go back to maybe World War I, and most of it is aviation. but
Mm-hmm.
I'd really like to expand even further back and learn everything. I know that they did a great restoration and rebuild of the fort on Mackinac Island. Uh, beautiful museum now.
Yeah.
But I'd love to learn even further back more details about the history of, well, pretty much everything. Everything that went on. So
Well, I know I've told people, and I think in here we've talked about it. When I was in high school, I spent a lot of time when I had free time or study time, and I didn't have other friends around, or they had class, or my girlfriend had class, or whatever. I spent it in the library, so I read. I mean, literally did read encyclopedias to pick up just information and stuff. But I read a lot of history
right.
related novels and um, narratives and things like that. And so I picked up a lot of the history from some of that stuff, and highly recommend. If anybody's interested, I have a whole series of books that I can highly recommend for that, especially for that Northwest area, Ohio and Michigan and up in there, that I've read, starting in the Middle East, or Middle East, excuse me, the Northeast, and
I was gonna say the Middle East. That's quite a distance.
I'm reading Tina's comments here just for a minute.
Oh, that's all right. Good morning, Tina and Tina. Good morning, Carol.
Well, Tina, I kind of grew up like that in some ways around certain people. Some of my family told some really tall tales. Some of them weren't to be believed. Some of them were. Probably the ones I should have been listening to. I didn't get all the stories. Oh, Pearl, I realize that. But, by all means, don't feel free to take a nap. I won't feel offended at all. I'd be surprised if you've had much sleep. Try to catch up here real quick.
Good morning, Cherie.
Hey, Cherie, I didn't see you pop in either. Good morning. And let's see here. Well, and Tina, for that matter, no, you're in New York. There's a lot of history in upstate New York that I was. I know that recently in one of Tina's chats, she brought up, or maybe it was on Instagram, but she brought up the Herkimer Church. Uh, is either near where she lives, or I don't know if you said you went there or some. I don't know exactly the story, but Herkimer was a famous name from the Revolutionary War period that I knew about, and it was actually in a movie once called Drums Along the Mohawk, and uh, there was a lot of revolutionary history, Native American war history. There's all kinds of stuff in that part of the country. That part of New York fascinated me from that standpoint. Tina, you know what that means, don't you? That means there was probably just a wee bit of stretching going on, but you know, he and God knew the truth, I suppose. Well, Sherry, I appreciate that. Thank you for stopping in. I hope work's not hitting you too hard today. How much longer do you have to go? Yeah, I know sometimes you start really early in the morning. I had a couple of uncles that used to get us kids. I never knew. Now I think back and don't know. Maybe it was just me. Whose leg he was pulling. His kids may have known better, but they used to get out and sit around in the yard when we'd be visiting over there, and they'd tell some of the tallest tales I've ever heard in my life. I had an uncle that swore that he played for the Yankees baseball team. He was in World War II, which he wasn't actually. He wasn't quite old enough. Had other uncles. His brother was, but and they there were colorful stories. Let's put it that way. And when
It makes life more interesting.
oh, they did that because when I was a younker, I believed every word he said. I had to. I mean, he was my elders. I had to believe it. I mean, it must have been true because he was telling it. But of course, I grew up to figure out maybe they were pulling my leg just a teeny bit, but or everybody's leg, I guess. At least child wise, I'm sure the adults all knew better, of course.
Relatives are fun, aren't they?
Oh, they were. I regret to this day though that when I got older and started trying to record some of that stuff or realized the value of it and wanted to do that I had waited too long. They were either already gone or they had passed away while I was in the process of trying to catch up. And that makes me sad. That's my own fault, and I should have gotten better. So my advice there is if anybody else has got stories like that, please write them down or get them and keep them, because they're invaluable and you won't be able to get them again later.
And I think parts of the country, or maybe the whole country, is starting to realize that. I know, like our World War II veterans. Now there are places that are trying to get every single one of their own stories. We've all seen documentaries on World War II in general, but it's their own personal stories that make what they've gone through so much more interesting to understand. Their different version of what they saw in the war, or their lifestyle even before the war. They'll tell stories about growing up.
Right. Well, I think when men or women come back from war, I think in most cases, or in a lot of cases, it's not something they really want to relive or talk about. So true. I think it more often than not, I suspect it takes a long time for those stories to come out. And then when they do, we realize how important that was, or what significant impact it may have made on their lives. Maybe the one exception for me was a friend I had, and I'm ashamed to say we've lost touch over the years, but he was in Vietnam, and he was well, he wouldn't just talk about it, but if he had a couple of beers or something in him, he and I got pretty close, and he would tell me some stories about that and what happened to him over there, and how badly he got shot up and things like that. It's not stuff he really wanted to talk about, but and I think that's no different with World War II vets. My dad served during the Korean War. He ended up getting his leg messed up, and I don't think he didn't go out of country as far as I know, but he served during that same time, and he talked about it a little bit, but he wouldn't talk about it a lot, even though he may not have been on the battlefield. I know he was involved with training, and I know a lot of friends and people he met and trained went over there and didn't come back, and I think that made a huge impact on him over the year. I mean, at that time. And I also remember he grew up during World War II. Well, he was born in 1930, so he was just, under, he was about, I guess, would that make him 10 when the war broke out, or 11?
Right.
And but he used to talk about how many people he remembered, young men that went off to fight the war and were like tail gunners and B-20. He for some reason this stuck in his mind years ago, but B-17 tail gunners. He knew apparently there were several people from that area that were in the Army Air Corps and were tail gunners and B-17s that didn't come back, and that stuck in his mind. That they were from a little town called Raider Sidetrack, which was just exactly what it sounds like. It was literally a railroad sidetrack where there was a few buildings and a church and probably a post office at one time. And they didn't live right in that area, but they lived a few miles away. And but he used to talk about, they just called it Raiders where he was from, and he talked about so and so from Raiders that didn't come back from the war, and and that kind of stuff. But most of them don't want to talk about it. So I guess I should have figured that out when my uncle was spinning his tales. I probably should have realized that probably meant they weren't entirely true.
And it all depends on how you approach it too. I first usually ask them if first if they're a veteran. And if they are, then I won't go directly into, well, how was it over there or something like that. I'll try and bring up a funny story or something,
Mm-hmm.
ask them about training or something, or do you have any jokes or pranks or something that you've pulled on your buddies, and we'd get into it that way. Uh, one one B-17 stop, EAA flies a B-17, and our Warbird squadron was hosting them for the weekend. A junior ROTC from the local high school was helping out with crowd control. One of the cadets had invited his grandfather to come out and check the B-17 out, and he was a Vietnam veteran. And we started talking, and I had noticed his hat, and I thanked him for his service because they really didn't get much of a thank you when they came back. So he really appreciated that, and we started talking, and he started telling me what he did over there, and he started telling me some of the stories, you know, recording stuff and sending it to his wife. And he said, we haven't listened to those recordings in years. I think it's about time that I put all of that together. After he was done talking and we shook hands, the cadet came up to me and he said, "How did you do that?" I said, "What do you mean? What did I do?" He said, "My grandfather has never told any of these stories to any of us. How did you do it?" I said, "I just started talking to him. That
Well,
was it."
and it could be because you weren't family. In some ways, that may have made it
Oh,
easier on him.
true.
Tina, I'm going to address what Tina said because she's absolutely correct. Korean War veterans weren't treated much better than Vietnam vets, and they weren't. I think it was different. I think Vietnam vets
Yes.
came home to a lot of protests and people complaining and blaming them
Right.
unjustly. I would have to say the soldiers, but I think in Korea's case, they mostly came back to nothing. I mean, I don't
Right.
think
It
they
was
had much hoopla, or they certainly didn't get welcome. I mean, it was just almost, that's why they call it the Forgotten War.
the forgot.
They
Yeah,
just
that's right.
they just
Yep.
kind of ignored it. And I think for the soldiers and women who served over there, and we forget how close MASH units were, and nurses and doctors and whatnot that were, they didn't realize how close to the lines a lot of those people were. And I think they had it rough. They had it just as rough as anybody in any war. I had an uncle. Tina was also saying her dad was born in 28 and volunteered for World War II a little early. I had an uncle who volunteered and was in World War II, and I'm trying to dig up some more details on his service now. But I know he was in the Battle of the Bulge. I know he was. I think he was in the Ardennes region of. I can't remember what units he was with or which army directly. I think he might have gone into Italy also, but he got out after World War II and he went back. When Korea started, he volunteered and went to Korea. Somewhere I have a picture of him on board a ship with a transport ship with a lot of other GIs that were heading over to Korea. Were in one of the harbors over there, and then he actually got out after Korea again. I'm not sure why he didn't stay in the army. He just went because he knew there was something going on. But he actually tried to volunteer and go back to Vietnam, and they decided he was too old at that time. So, so he didn't get to go to Vietnam, but he tried. And that's what's bad about that is over the years, some of my other relatives or cousins or what have you used to, I guess they didn't treat him very respectfully. Let's put it that way. He had a drinking problem when he came back or at some point in his life, and he was bad to drink for a while there. In fact, my mom kind of saved his life. He finally got so bad that the doctor said, if you don't stop, you're dead. And she got him and brought him home and got him into the VA center in Johnson City, and he got to. They have barracks there, or that's not what they call it though. They have residents that live there, vets, and he got to live in the dormitories, I guess they call them. But he stayed there till the day he passed away. Another funny story about him though. This was typical of somebody from her family. My grandmother was a lot like this too, but he was in the VA center, and there used to be a famous East Tennessee politician named Jimmy Quillen. He was in the House for umpteen million years or so. I can't remember now how long. He was there forever. But they built the medical center in Johnson City is now named after him because he helped get it built. But they built this new VA building on Mountain Home for the vets and the hospital and stuff, and it was really nice. But it also came about during that time when they started passing rules and laws that you couldn't smoke inside federal buildings and whatnot, and then you had to be so far outside just if you smoking areas or what. Well, my uncle smoked, as a lot of people his age did at that time. But when Jimmy Quillen came to visit, when they had the grand opening for the center, he came to visit. So these veterans were all lined up or sitting outside greeting him, or he was greeting them. And he got to my Uncle Afton, and he said, Mr. He knew his name, but he called him by name, Mr. Sensabaugh. Said, how are you doing here? How do you like this facility? Are they treating you well? And he said, well, I got a damn problem. And it's part of my language. This is how he would say it. This is how he spoke. He said, well, I got one damn problem. He said, you people got me smoking cigarettes when I was in World War II. And if you don't know, back then, when you got food rations, they always came with cigarettes. All C rations, K rations had cigarette packs in them. And the soldiers would trade. In fact, all the way up into Vietnam, I know they did that. And you could, they trade the cigarettes to people that wanted them or different brands because you never knew what you were going to get. You might get Winston in a pack. You might get Pall Malls in another pack.
Pall Mall, Lucky Strike.
Yep. Yeah, that kind of stuff. He said, so anyway, he said, you guys got me smoking by putting all them damn cigarettes in my C ration packets. He said, now I'm living here and you won't let me smoke. He said, I'm pissed off about that. He said, what are you going to do about it? He gave him hell over that no smoking there. He just felt like it was totally unfair. And I'll pardon my language, folks.
Morning, Flipper. How you doing, Jason?
Hey, Jason. Good morning, sir.
I was going to play the Flipper theme.
Oh, well, I don't have that kind of. I'm not up to speed on that kind of stuff yet, so. That's true, Tina. I wouldn't try to tell him to stop now for nothing. I mean, who knows? Maybe he's been doing the right thing.
Yeah, when you were talking about how Korean vets really didn't come back home to much, I think the country was still feeling the sting, sort of the trying to get over World War II.
Well, that's probably true too.
When everything started breaking out with Korea.
And I think Korea seems so much smaller in scale than World War II had, and
it was, yeah.
And like you say, World War II took so much out of, well, not just this country, but the world. And so, yeah, you're probably right. That probably did have something to do with it. It was, I mean, we're only talking 6 years or so after, which is, I have to remind myself sometimes, Tina, you and I can address this, I guess. Not saying you're old, but I was only born about 12 years after World War II ended. And sometimes I think about that and I try to think how much the world was different from what it had been just a short time before I was born. And 12 years is 12 years. I mean, to some people who are a kid, that sounds like a long time, but it doesn't sound like a long time to me anymore. And I think about it and think, wow, that's incredible. I mean, they were still rebuilding Europe and things were still, we were in the heyday, I guess you could say. The baby boom was going, of course, hitting or had hit, and this country's economy was flourishing. We were doing a lot of things, but everybody in the world wasn't, and they were still doing a lot of rebuilding, and which is another thing that fascinates me. If you look at the destruction of World War II in Europe, I don't know how they ever rebuilt anything. I'm not sure how anything survived the war, for that matter.
We need to invite Tina on.
Yeah, well, she's welcome to come in anytime if she'd like to. I'll send her a link. Yeah, Tina, 12 years is a blip. You're right. It seems like at one time it seemed like it was so long ago, or such a long time. I mean, boy, it sure does now.
Come on, Tina, come on the stream.
I'll send her a link, and she can, if she wants to, she's welcome. Let me see if I can get there.
Yeah, I mean a lot, especially with you've got the Cold War, you've got the economy was really coming back strong after the war. At least, I mean, as far as history books, it that's what it said. But
yeah,
I guess it all depended where you lived, really.
Yeah, Tina, we're not putting pressure on you if you don't have to. I mean, I know you may or may not feel like it, or you may or may not have on your best glasses. I know how that works. I had to get all my makeup, my hair done, and get prettied up for I can be on. If you think I'm ugly now, you should see me before the camera came on.
Why do you think I'm never on the camera?
Well, we don't know. Someday maybe you will be again. I have seen you on camera before.
You have, yeah.
I have. At least once or twice.
Here and there.
She is not camera ready. Well, that's fine. Maybe another time. I might get both Tinas on here and just see what how the conversation turns. Although I've seen some conversations late with Tina in them and Kelly from the Mickey's bunch, and there's a lot of red-faced people in those chats. I got a little concerned about if they were not feeling well or something.
Yeah. Oh. Kelly really gets the streams going. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I can do this. I'm going to try something here. Just bear with me a moment. At least I think I'm going to try something. I'm going to try something new, folks. So
break.
Do what?
I was reading Tina's comment.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, see, I agree with Carol.
Well, I probably won't do that because I don't know how. I had a picture I wanted to show you or show everybody, but I don't know how to do that. Somebody's gonna have to get me down and learn me some things, because I had a neat picture. A friend of mine had posted a picture on, I don't know if she was on Facebook or Instagram, but anyway, she posted a picture. She lives down a little bit closer to the Smokies than I do, and she had a picture of a mama bear and 3 cubs walking across the road near her house. So it's must be it's a good year for bear cubs, I'm thinking.
Chris should be able to show you how to do
who?
That. Chris, Dad builds.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he can. I need to talk to him about that. I've been meaning to ask a couple of people about it, and I just hate to well, hell, I'm probably afraid. I don't want to seem ignorant, but maybe that's my problem. Maybe I'm too embarrassed, but I know it's doable because there's a space here for it, but I just don't know how to do it. So I tried it one day and it didn't work. If you've only had one cup, I'm going to tell you right now, ladies, if you've only had one cup of coffee this morning, you're way behind me. I'm just going to say that. Oh, you did, Billy. Did you guys get to see it? Bears have gotten more common down this way than they were, at least than they were for a long time. There's always been bears here, but they were hunted and moved out because of loss of habitat and whatnot. And most of them are in the Smokies or the national forest in this area, which there's quite a few of along the mountain chain. But as the populations have grown some, they've expanded. So every once in a while, you see one here in town too.
Did you get a chance to check out Patrick Conley's YouTube channel? Some of his videos.
Let me think. I don't know. When were we talking about that? I may have. I know I wrote it down.
Tuesday, I think.
Maybe I wrote it down. Yeah, I got it written down here, but no, I didn't. That's why I wrote this down. I was trying to remember why I made this note. Now I know. I got him right here on this piece of paper. Probably can't read it, but there's his name. Now I'll have to do that later. I've been close to at least 2 sets of triplets in the park. Twins are actually fairly common with black bears. Triplets are not uncommon, but they're not nearly as common as twins or singles. Right. And I had a set walk by me within probably 10 or 15 feet one time when I was in the park one summer, and they just kept going. I just stood still and didn't move, and they just kept right on going through the woods. So that was good enough for me.
Well, what's funny is Patrick Conley, he doesn't feed them, but they come out of the woods and they walk right up on his front porch, and he's out there just filming them. Sometimes the cubs will come right up to him, which is bad because the mother's right there too. But
it's bad. It could be bad for him. Obviously, what's worse is if they do it to someone else. Because that's what. Well, sorry, excuse me, guys, for my hand in my mouth. I believe I had a teddy hair there, or a mustache hair or something. Problem with a haircut, I'm shed for 2 days later.
It happens.
Oh, I know what I was saying. Problem with bears and so many wild animals is once they get accustomed or acclimated to humans, then that's usually when they get in trouble.
Right.
And as cute as the bear cubs are and stuff, they're really not pets, and feeding them is. Yeah, I don't know. Let me tell you, this is a true story. It's not about me. It's just about bears. But bears have always been a popular tourist attraction in areas where they were at, like parks. Smoky Mountain National Park it's the black bear has always kind of been their logo or their symbol or totem or whatever you want to call it. They're pretty famous for their black bears. Yellowstone National Park used to have, I guess they had grizzlies and blacks out there.
Yep.
I'm not sure what they had when this was going on, but they used to have a dump site in a remote part of the park where nobody went. And back then, people dumping your trash out in a pit somewhere wasn't uncommon, or a certain area, and letting it just rot down. Of course, they didn't have a lot of plastic back then, but they actually built bleachers at Yellowstone National Park. You used to be able to go to the dump and watch the bears get into the garbage at night, and it was a big attraction. People actually went out there and watched it, and the park rangers, managers, whatever, I guess you could say, condoned it. They kind of let it happen. They knew it was going on for a long time. They let that kind of stuff happen, and that's just one of the worst things you could ever do with bears. I have my buddy Philip that I ride motorcycles with and worked in airplanes with for a long time. who's also now recently retired. He has a story he likes to tell. I don't remember if it was in the 60s. He's a couple of years older than me, or when it was, but his family lived in Ohio at the time, and they took a big summer vacation one time and drove down to the Smokies from Ohio. And one thing he really remembers about that trip was his dad wanted this. There was what we called down here a bear jam. That's when the bears are out near the road or in the road, and all the tourists stop to watch, and all the cars and traffic backs up for miles, and it's called a bear jam. Anyway, there was a bear on the road or by the road, and this was back. This happened a lot back then. They've curtailed this now, but he decided he was going to get a picture of the bear, and he was going to get a close-up picture of the bear. So he got out of the picnic basket, as Yogi would say, picnic basket. He got the potato chips out and decided he was going to offer the bear potato chips and then get a close-up picture. Now, Tina, I know you're a photographer, so you listen closely. Now, I don't want to find out. I don't want to see a picture of you doing this. So he's out there, and my buddy Phil's mom's like, "No, don't. This is not right. Don't do this. Something's going to happen. You're going to get hurt. Whatever." So he gets out there, and he's kind of, I guess, leading with the potato chips, and he's got a camera, which I think at the time might have been like a Brownie, Kodak Brownie or something. I believe is what he said. But suddenly the bear charged him. And of course, he's looking through the camera lens, so all he sees is suddenly, and he falls back. And when he does, he hits the camera button. And of course, the bear gets the potato chips and runs back off the side of the road. Well, later, when they get home, he got the film developed. And what he got was this picture, kind of a blurry picture of the bear's nose right up in the camera lens. And that's all you can see is the bear's nose is focused, and the rest of the face is blurry because it's coming in fast. And he said that's stuck with him all these years. I don't know if he managed to keep that picture or not, but if he did, I'd love to see it someday. But he said his dad learned the hard way. So Tina, don't feed the bears potato chips to get a good picture. That's my advice.
Well, and that's why I worry about the New Zealand orca. I know that you saw the first episode of the whales and how friendly they are. I believe that they're mainly friendly because they are rescued so much. And granted, they're sacred around New Zealand. It's they're highly protected, even more than the orcas that we have around here. And they have their full trust in humans that they'll swim around you and just they study you. And one of these times I worry that they'll run into the wrong people.
I worry. I do worry about that too, and hopefully it doesn't ever come to that. Let me show Tina something. Tina, you're right. They are very cute, especially when they're little. But let me show you something. Hopefully this will focus on this. See this picture? This is an actual black bear skull. Now, it doesn't have any hair on it, so it's not nearly as cute. But look right down here in this area. See these things? These are called teeth. These are big teeth, and these are not much smaller teeth. And they will bite you. And they will bite you hard. So just remember that.
They have those big things on their paws called claws, too.
They have those. Yes, they do. Very big things. We had
they're like 4 inches, or is that on the grizzly? Their claw length.
Grizzlies are longer.
Like 6, I think.
Yeah, probably. I'm not sure. Black bears could be 4. I think they're between 2 and 4. I would say average.
No.
Grizzly bears are longer. I tell you what's fascinating, and we again, it's one of those little things that stuck up here, but there are several species and subspecies of all bears, and grizzlies are no exception to that. And when Europeans first started moving west across the Mississippi and into the plains states, there was actually what was known then as a plains grizzly. And the plains grizzly was actually a bigger grizzly. Well, I don't know, his physical size may not have been that much bigger, but than the mountain grizzlies. But what was really unique about them was since they lived out on the prairie and the plains, they dug a lot for what they ate. I mean, all grizzlies root, and I mean, all bears pretty much eat. They dig up roots, and they love to eat bees' nests out of the ground, that kind of stuff. But these plains grizzlies, I guess, because of where they growing up on the plains, when the plains were all natural grasslands, the sod was really deep and had a thick amount of roots and whatnot. So much so that the early settlers had a heck of a time plowing the ground. In fact, that's why the advent of the steel plow was so important to them. But anyway, these grizzlies had claws that were like this long. They were much longer and they were curved, but they were probably twice as long as the grizzlies now that we see out west. And I every once in a while I've seen examples of them that were preserved or kept from somebody or over the years been handed down, but they were, compared to what we have today, they were huge. And this was only, well, Lewis and Clark ran into them, so in the early to mid 1800s, but probably by the mid 1800s they were all gone, unfortunately. And not
Yeah,
too much.
that's what happens with a lot of species. They end up being hunted, or just there's not enough to sustain them, so they end up kind of fading away.
Well, their habitat got so disturbed. I mean,
Right.
we don't just shoot them all or hunt them all or kill them.
Right.
That, habitat destroys, that pushes them further in and causes conflict with other bears or whatever. And over time, that subspecies just disappears. But I mean, these people, when the Europeans first went west, they'd never seen grizzly bears, or at least not the grizzlies in this country. There were brown bears in Europe, but by that time they were probably mostly gone in Europe too, or at least a lot thinner. But they weren't as big, I don't think, over there as they are here. And that people didn't know what they were. I mean, they were these huge monstrous bears that they were probably scared to death of, and so they were hunted and whatever for all kinds of reasons, but which we're prone to do too. So that's another topic too, I guess. But
Well, habitat loss, that's a big issue with many species around the world too. The giant panda, the red panda, gorillas, the okapis, in Africa. They're doing so much mining, and this is brought up all the time. The cell phones that we have, or the laptops that we use, they have cobalt in the batteries. A lot of that is mined from Africa, and they end up knocking down most of that forest to mine it out. So they always say, if you're going to get rid of something, make sure that at least the battery is recycled, or recycle your cell phone. If you can find a recycle area, they could reuse that battery or reuse that cobalt at least. It may not stop all of the mining, but it'll slow it down.
No, but it does help. It does
Right.
help. I just recycled about 4 or 5 old computers chassis that we had that I've had since probably the mid 90s actually, and didn't ever throw away because I didn't know how to destroy the hard drives. And then this winter I had the hard drives pulled out and broken so that nobody can get information off of them. But I just recycled the computers for that reason. I mean, they need to get all that stuff out of them. And it's not just cobalt even. There's all kinds of precious metals in there now that are now precious metals because they're used in phones and laptops and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if it could be reused again, at least it'll definitely slow down the effects of all the mining going on, especially in Africa. I think they lose about 10 miles a week.
Oh,
Maybe
it's something.
every few
It's
days.
something like that. I mean, and same thing in South America. The forest down there is getting depleted. I don't know what the rate is now, but I can remember just a few years ago when they were burning about at least Oh, it was more than a football field a day. I can't remember now how many acres a day they were losing down there because they were clearing the land to farm it and or mine it.
And who knows how many species, and not
Oh
just
yeah.
like animal species, but plant species that is lost. I mean, some of this
Oh,
stuff
absolutely.
could cure disease. You know,
Yeah. Did you
we
ever
just
see
don't
the
know.
movie? Oh, I won't remember the name of
Is
it.
that the one with Sean Connery?
Yeah, where they
Yeah,
discovered that. I mean, in that movie, it was not a true movie, but the point they made was very real, and that was that there was
right,
an orchid that grew in the rainforest that could cure, I believe, cancer or it could
right.
cure
Yep.
something. And that kind of stuff we don't know, and we're losing those species right now. We've probably lost way more than we'll ever know in that regard.
Right. There's still so much out there in the world that none of us know about. You know, what can there may be a species out there, a type of plant, or even something from an insect, something that could help cure a disease that we don't even know about yet. And
Yeah,
if
it's
it
not.
disappears, then
We'll never know it.
right. It's a missed opportunity. So
And that's why there's so many. I mean, that's one reason why there's people now that are trying to get into those areas and find that, talk to the natives that are still there that know some of those secrets of healing and medicine that they've found over their handed down history and that sort of thing. I wanted to comment on something somebody else. I would rather recycle. I would rather give. Somebody said donate it. Tina, I believe you said that. Tina. I'm not going to say older Tina. That's what she told me yesterday. I'm not going to say that. Tina McNeil. Uh, I would donate mine. Most of mine are so old though that they're. I doubt you could even make them work anymore. The software is so old on them, and they're so far behind. I mean, I had stuff that had early Windows that I don't even know what it was called back then, 498 or 397 or 1312. I don't know, but most of them were pretty old, and I've actually sent some back when I bought them, traded them in for recycling. I mean, I do want to recycle them, but um, and fortunately down here right now, we're not having to pay to have it done. So we can take them to the recycle center and they'll take them. I'm hoping that you am old. You ain't no older than I am or close enough. I don't know. I don't want to get into an age fight here like a sorcerer's duel, but uh, close enough. So if you're old, I'm old. Well, I know I'm old, but I still wouldn't call you old, Tina. My mama
I'll
raised
say
me better than that.
young at heart.
The
Young at heart.
Well, that's probably true, Tina. If they get paid for them, then that would be a good thing. You're right. I do agree, and I'll have to check into that before I recycle. I've got. We realized the other day we took the computers to get recycled. Then I realized, or my wife realized, I knew they were in there, but we've got several old monitors. The kind that look like a houseboat or an outboard motor. We need to recycle those next, so I can get my closet straightened out enough that I can finish getting inside it and look for some of the things I've lost.
I was just reading Pearl's comment.
Well, Pearl, that still makes you about 10 years younger than me. So, well, almost. So don't tell me that, whippersnapper.
And it is a shame about having to pay,
Yeah,
Carolyn.
it is. I mean, it is. I mean, I guess if you didn't have the service at all, it's better than nothing. At least they're doing it.
Right.
But like Tina says, I mean, a lot of people aren't going to go to the trouble to recycle them if they've got to pay to have it done. And and that is a shame. I mean, at least that is one thing about here. They do take them. I
Right.
hope
Right.
that they're doing the right things with them, but as far as I know,
Right.
they are.
Well, luckily, we have centers here that'll take them. We don't have to pay to have them take an old TV or some other old electronic. And I'm not sure. I'm sure that they separate everything, and maybe they do take the copper in and get paid for whatever. Um, but at least if it's uh, like an old cell phone, or a laptop or computer,
Keep talking, Chris.
whichever.
I just had a
It,
message here. Let me check it.
it's at least if you recycle that, it goes to a good cause. It'll, like I said, it'll slow things down. And even on the safari at Animal Kingdom, I'm sure they've mentioned it a few times that there are certain things that get mined out of Africa and they're losing their habitat at such a high rate, um, especially the gorillas and the okapis. They live in the Congo and um, the lowland area, and it's all being mined. So if there is a way to recycle all of that, at least it'll slow down the mining process a little bit more. I think the gorillas are starting to slowly make a comeback. The okapis are still uh, vulnerable right now, if not endangered. Uh, so hopefully they'll make a comeback if everything starts slowing down. But it's still an issue. Yeah, copper thieves. There's seems to be copper thieves everywhere. They'll go into the air conditioning units and try and take the copper. Even with them still being used, people will take their air conditioning units and take the copper out of them. Yeah, that's no fun. $100 or more per TV. Wow, that's crazy. I mean, you would think that they would see it as doing something great, but let me see. But yeah, I think he's got to just making sure that you know you're muted.
Well, no wonder nobody was paying any attention to me.
Right.
I muted it because I had a message and then I forgot to fix it. Dang. It's, Ellen said, stupid Tim, stupid Tim. No, I was saying that when I was working, we had a couple of houses that were near the lake that I knew people or met people. And during the construction process, a couple of different times, people went in and at night or on weekends and stripped all the wiring out of them so they could steal all the copper and sell it. And the agency I work for also makes electricity, so we had spools of copper wire and things in places where they would be stringing up power lines, and a couple different times that got stolen, so they had to really beef up security too.
Oh, copper is highly valuable.
I don't know what it's worth today, but there for a little while it was really worth a lot of money,
Oh
and
yeah,
people were still. We had, I mean, all scrap metal got up high there for a little while,
yep.
and so just about anything that wasn't nailed down was getting stolen in some areas. Uh, some people just needed the money, and some people were just looking for a way to earn a living. So I understand some of that, but and it got some junk off. I got a couple of loads of junk hauled away off the reservoir one time because people were wanting to try to recycle as much, and I didn't care if they got money for it or not. That was up to them. If they got more power to them, they were hauling it away from me. So, and copper pipes, Tina, that was another problem. Yes.
Yep.
It was pretty bad. I don't know if it's still as bad. It probably is in some places, but I know just a few years ago it was really bad.
It was, and that's when I was mentioning the air conditioning units.
Yeah.
People would steal air conditioning units as they were still being used. You
Oh,
know,
I know.
they would take them from people's homes and take all of the copper out of them. It's crazy. It happens quite often. I'm not sure how much it happens today, but yeah, it still happens every once in a while. We have some we have some I want to say I can't think of the word. My mind isn't working.
Well, it
Honest.
just,
We have some honest scrap people in
oh
town.
yeah.
You know, they'll drive up and down the street and try and collect whatever before it's thrown out, and I'm sure they make a living off of that because we have several scrap areas about 10-15 miles from here. So, but yeah, there are some that still try and take people's air conditioning units.
Oh, I see Pearl had mentioned something about catalytic converters. That's another thing that happened. Our office wasn't that well monitored where we were at for a few years. And it actually sat kind of down in a little hole, and it was sort of out of sight and out of mind. And on weekends, we had over one of the holidays, we came back and somebody went out one day to start their company vehicle. Most of us had trucks or Jeeps that we worked out of. And they started up and it sounded like it had straight pipe headers. And well, they got underneath and looked, and somebody had come along over the weekend and started sawing off catalytic converters out of 7 or 8 vehicles we had there. I think 4 or 5 of them were missing converters, and a couple more they had tried to take them. And I mean, they just come in there at night when nobody was around and just take a jigsaw or a power sawzall with battery powered, and just cut them off, take them down, and sell them.
Wow.
People weren't supposed to actually. We found out later people weren't actually supposed to be buying them that way, but of course, they were, because the platinum in them and stuff was worth a fortune.
Oh yeah.
I'll tell you another
Yeah.
one. I know probably everybody here remembers this. I'm not sure exactly what year this was, and probably in the late 2000s, but everybody remember when gasoline got up to about $5 a gallon, and a couple of hurricanes had hit the Gulf Coast and knocked out some of the refining stations, but gasoline got up the most expensive I've ever seen it in this country. And I know it got over $5 a gallon in many places. We had a Jeep. One of my coworkers had a Jeep that was assigned to him. And we came in one day, and he went out to go somewhere, and his Jeep was gone. And we're not even sure how many days maybe it'd been gone, because he hadn't been there to go out for a while. So he reported it, and of course they went on the lookout for it. Well, a few days later they found it, and they found it sitting in a field down in a small town, 50 miles, 30, 40 miles away. I can't remember, but whoever stole it, and this was going on around here, and probably I'm sure in other places too. But they'd stripped it out, taken all the seats and everything they could out of it. They'd cut a hole in the floorboard about yay big in the rear floorboard, and what they were doing was they were pulling up into a Quickie Mart or a gas station and parking. And they'd get out and go in. Well, there was somebody in the car, and they'd reach through that hole, and they would open up the gas, where the trucks come in and fill the gas pumps up. The tanks are in the ground. Well, they'd
Yeah.
take the lid off one of those, drop a hose down in it, and they were filling up gas cans inside the car. They were stealing gasoline. Gasoline was so expensive, they were going around pirating gasoline. And that's what they were doing with this Jeep. They had cut a hole in it and turned it into a tanker, in
Oh wow.
essence. And that was happening. They caught several people doing it. A van or something was a little bit better concealed than a Jeep, but they would just drive over the fuel, the nozzle or the hole in the ground, take the cap off of it, drop a hose down in it, and sit there for a few minutes, looking the other way and whistling. I'm sure the other person was probably in the store talking up to the cashier or something.
Right.
And they'd steal as many gallons as they could pump and then drive away and go somewhere else. I mean, they caught several people doing it around here and around the country. I heard, but we actually had a Jeep get stolen for that very purpose. So I know it was happening here.
Well, nowadays, and I won't get into it, but if so much as anyone sneezes, and all of a sudden the price of gas will go up 30
Oh, I
cents.
know that's true. The
So and so sneezed today, the price of gas will be going up 30 cents.
Okay, Tina, let's tell old gas stories. Do you remember Gas Wars? I mean, other people might, but I paid as little as 19 cents a gallon for gas a few times, and maybe even less than that I don't remember. But I know I used to fill my motorcycle up occasionally for about 80 cents, and that was 4.5 gallons, something like that. And
When
the
when
and that
I
was
started driving, I think the lowest that I ever saw gas was 91 cents, and that was a miracle.
I love it when it gets down below $1 now.
Right.
Oh, I started driving right in the middle of the oil crisis of '74, whatever we call it, the oil embargo period. So I got to set in lines, long gas lines, where you could buy 10 gallons at a time, or $10 worth at a time, whatever or they ran out of gas, and you have to go somewhere else and try to get in line again to find some. And so it went up from that, 20. It was, I mean, I remember it being 25, 30 cents a gallon just about all the time. But then it suddenly was up over 50 cents a gallon, and we were all just irate. And, everybody got so mad because it went up. I mean, everybody was so upset because it went up. And of course, we all got excited. I mean, government and different people, they started talking about fuel efficient cars and that sort of thing. And they started talking about regulations to make cars more fuel efficient. Of course, then that all went away after we got used to it being 50 cents a gallon, and until it got up higher and higher. And then we start talking about fuel efficiency again. But
Yeah, that was
we forget so quickly.
that was pretty much when the muscle cars went away and
Yeah,
the Pinto started showing up and some of these other smaller cars, more of the subcompact type cars started showing up.
that's very true. And of course, we weren't very good at building those at that time. I don't
Yeah.
know that our heart was in it. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe Detroit's heart really wasn't in small cars. But a funny thing about that is Detroit had gone through a small car phase earlier in the '60s. If you think about it, well, if you remember or were around then, Ford Motor Company was building small cars. Falcon was a small car. Uh, the Comet was a small car by Mercury, still Ford. I don't know. Chevy had the Chevy Deuces, 4 cylinders and small 6-cylinder engines, and actually some of those got pretty good gas mileage. I had an early model Ford van with a 6-cylinder, and it got almost 30 miles to the gallon. Of course, it had nothing
Wow.
on it. It had no air conditioning, and it was 3-speed on the column, if you know what that is.
Three
But
three on the three on
on
the
the
tree.
yeah, 3 on the tree. I mean, on a road trip, it got nearly 30 miles to the gallon. Of course, it wasn't a hot rod by any means, but they built some more fuel efficient things, and it seems like I lost everything. Uh, Simon, stop! I got another visitor here. Hang on a minute. Come here. Come here. Come up here and introduce yourself. This is our chunky boy, Simon. And if you think Teddy's a big boy, this one right here is he's a bigger boy. A heavier boy. Let's put it that.
Simon.
He is compact. He weighs. He's smaller than Teddy. He's actually got shorter legs and shorter body, but he's
He,
plump.
he likes to sleep in on Mondays and he likes lasagna.
Yeah. This is the Garfield of cats here for sure, because this boy don't miss a meal, and in fact he don't miss anybody else's meal if he can help it. We have to watch him because he likes to sneak off and get everybody else's food. It's funny how cats behave. I mean, we've got cats in this house that all have access to the same food, same meals, and yet we have 2 big boys and 2 little bitty cats. And I guess it just depends on the cat. Of course, all of our cats are spayed or neutered, so I know that makes a difference. But my old cat Spooky, he's always been skinny as a rail, and he was fixed when he was young. So, right, Simon. This cat was actually a rescue that my in-laws took in. somebody decided that my father-in-law or my mother-in-law needed a cat, a pet. So my daughter, my youngest daughter, and my wife went up there and they helped. They went and picked out a cat, and they picked out Simon here. And but he was bad to claw. He wants to play, and he used to. He wants to sleep and eat mostly now, but he would claw my father-in-law, who was at that time was on blood pressure or blood thinners. So they said they were worried about him, cutting him and scratching him and then bleeding. But I think he probably picked on him and got him to fight out of meanness. And then of course they decided they need to get rid of him. And then my wife felt bad for him because they'd helped bring him into the house, so they brought him here. And he's been here ever since. What can I say? We're just a sucker for a cat without a home, I guess.
Morning, Don.
Good morning, Don. How is your little bit of Appalachia and Texas out there today? Hopefully the weather's not bad. I saw a big patch of weather either out your way coming this way or maybe it's already passed. So hopefully you guys are safe. So anyway, that's our Simon. I got them all down yesterday and trimmed their nails, which he's not a problem. I can trim his by myself and the old cat usually by myself. But the two kittens, the young, not kittens anymore, we call them kittens, Teddy and his sister, and God, they hate having their nails clipped. It takes two of us to hold them. Although Teddy's getting a little bit better. He bit me yesterday just a tiny bit. Oh, you're kitty parents too?
A love bite.
Yeah, well, yeah, he didn't nail me. He has nailed me before, but it might be a love bite, but it's an authoritative love bite when he really gets serious about it. Aren't you, bud? I'm thinking about starting his own webpage. What do you think? Is Carol still in the room? What do you think, Carol? Do you think Teddy needs his own Facebook or Instagram page? I've been
that would work. We need more pictures of Teddy.
Yeah, well, I'm sure I can fix that up. What do you think, bud? Oh, see, every time I bring it up, he starts asking for more money.
Is he reaching out his paws, saying, "All right, hand it over"?
Dude, what? I'm sorry. What I was reading what Pearl was saying about driving a Fiero back when they first came out.
I was saying, was he reaching out his paws, saying, "Hand it over"?
Yeah, he's give me the money. He's a ham. When I first started doing this on Saturday mornings, he couldn't stand not to be up in my face. I mean, every time I started talking on here, he got up in my lap and wanted to be all in it and all about it. And then when he got to be more famous, he decided it was it was beneath him or something. I think what happened was I got a new chair, and I gave him my old chair, and he had barely been out of it since I gave it to him. That might have been the mistake. I gave him a chair to sit in, so now he figures that's all he needs. What do you think, bud? He thinks it's not worth his time right now because he's taking a nap.
Carol's right. Teddy needs all the socials.
Yeah, he probably does. I'm gonna have to work on that. I've started to do a book. One of the things I thought about doing when I retired was some. I probably said this before too, but I used to write a little bit, and I've written some stories, and I've been trying to write stuff down for ages. But I thought about writing some children's books. I was going to write some children's books about the cats, and I was going to write one about Chloe's adventures, the little female that we've got, because she seemed like she's always in something. And I thought I'd try to write maybe some children's books about that. But if I do that, I have to watch my language. So I don't know if that's going to work out or not. Parents, I don't think, would appreciate some of my more colorful commentary.
Yeah, I could see that.
I just have to be careful. Well, I don't know, Chris. You may or may not agree, and you may not have been as exposed. But there's two groups of people that are famous for their language. One are sailors, They're pretty famous. But I grew up. I worked in the other field, which was aviation mechanics, maybe mechanics in general. And there's not a sailor, many sailors. I don't think there's. I'm not sure there is a sailor out there that could do any better than an aircraft mechanic, because if it's been said, I've heard it, and I've probably said it. Well, you got a good point there, Pearl. If he can write one, I probably can too. That's a good point. Hey, Dave Cantrell. Good to see you, buddy. I didn't make it. I think did you stream last night? Because I missed it. If you did, for some reason I thought it was tonight.
Morning, Dave.
So does she, Mike? Does she know you're spilling the beans on that right now? He says Val has the mouth of a sailor. I can't lie, I do for sure.
You know who else has the mouth of a sailor in our community?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I've had conversations with her, not in the stream, and she probably could keep up with me on a good day.
Yeah, we love her though.
Oh yeah, I didn't say I didn't. I just.
Oh no, but yeah, she's funny. She's great with helping out, health wise too.
Oh yeah, I haven't talked to her in a few days. I meant to. I need to ask her a question about. We'll see what she knows about knee repair.
Yeah.
Since I may have mine done here soon. Hey, Adventures by D. Who do we have here today? And I can't remember if it's a by D and a by G, or if it's just by D. And I just saw Mike. Mike said that Val's in the other room. That's good. She's probably not watching this YouTube channel right now either, I'm going to assume. I can get away with a lot of that kind of stuff around my wife because I know she's usually not watching. She gets too involved in murder and mayhem on TV if she's watching TV. Although she claims she listened to some of the show on her way up to Johnson City a while ago. So, oh, well, she said she did listen to the show. Well, excellent. Hopefully she hit the like button. She probably didn't. She might not have figured that out yet. She's still new to this YouTube thing. I think she thinks I'm at least half crazy. I've been trying to get her to do some more stuff too. She does a lot of sewing and she does some embroidery and that kind of thing, but she hasn't embraced the YouTube yet.
Does she sew or embroider quite often, or?
She sews. Well, she's had some moments where she didn't so much. She didn't sew near as much during the quarantine as she probably should have or could have, but she's got quite a selection of cloth and material. She's been storing up material for years. What she sews a lot, or has sewed a lot of the last few years, are aprons. She got on an apron jag and started doing that. She's also done a couple of like christening gowns for people and children. She likes to do children's clothing. When I was in reenacting and did a lot of historical stuff, she made a lot of my clothes. And we sold some. She used to make, we had some patterns from historic patterns for pants.
Yeah.
Like button front knickers or short pant, like what some people call knickerbockers today. They're just how the pants were made. They buttoned below the knee and they had a flap and that kind of stuff. She made some of those and she made a lot of shirts. And I've got something I need to show online one day if I can remember exactly where I've got it put up, and I don't this minute. But she also used to do some bead work, and she beaded one year for Christmas. She surprised me. She beaded a deer skin or elk skin rifle cover for one of my muzzle loaders. It's beaded, all the full length of it is beaded. And she took the whole thing from one of the books I've got about Native American artwork and that sort, and replicated it. And I can't remember now whose pattern it was, but she was pretty good at that too. And but she's been doing aprons. She has an Etsy site, Sunny Windows Creations on Etsy,
I was just going to ask if she did it just as a hobby or if she had an
No,
Etsy.
she does it. I mean, I can't. I mean, it's not like she doesn't really do it for a living, if you will, but she makes some and sells some, and she's done some custom ones. I've been trying to get her to get involved in cosplay or bounding or that kind of stuff because she's really
Yeah.
good with a sewing machine. I mean, she's been doing it all her life. She learned to sew on her grandmother's treadle machine when she was a young girl and has pretty much been.
She would be great. I'm trying to think of some shows where there's a lot of reenactors. I know one is in Reading, Pennsylvania, at the air show.
Oh,
They
really?
pretty much take care. They take over the town. It's pretty
Ah,
interesting.
what's the
And
what period are they emulate? Are they do they
World War II.
World War II? Oh, that's
Um,
interesting.
I know there's one
There's a lot
in.
of patterns for that kind of clothing out there.
Oh yeah, and it's not just the military. It's like English clothing. You know, us like somebody who's walking through London or French type clothing, and it's the same thing. There's a a big reenactment, I believe, in Kentucky, and there's another one in Rockford, Illinois, huge one. Over, I think it's 2,000 people tend to go to Rockford. Um, and they'll take over parts of the town. It's pretty neat. They'll walk through the streets, and there'll be others in civilian wear walking through the streets. Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Well, that is cool.
Yeah.
The town I grew up in, or I say grew up in. I mean, I guess that's kind of figurative. I mean, I grew up in several places, but I guess my more formative years were in Jonesboro, Tennessee, and which is now the
Oh,
national storytelling capital or center. Uh, that all got started when I was actually still in high school, or actually junior high, I guess we called it back then, with the 4th of July celebration that was called Jonesboro Days. Jonesboro is the oldest, just I'll give a little bit of history here. Jonesboro is the oldest, was the first capital of the state of Franklin, actually, before we were the state of Tennessee. And then I think technically the first capital of Tennessee, and then it moved further west to Greenville, and then eventually to Nashville, maybe to Knoxville, and then to Nashville as a frontier spread, if you will. Okay, thank you, Tina, because I didn't get it yet. And when I was growing up, this guy was a mayor of Jonesboro, and they decided to start trying to take Jonesboro back to its roots. I mean, the whole thing was a ploy, if you will, to bring tourists in or more business into Jonesboro, and because it was a pretty small town, it still is a small town. But he had a lot of plans, and they eventually built the national storytelling centers there. I actually had some friends. In fact, the guy that taught me to fly and I worked with for years, or around, and wrote the book that I've got here about aviation. He told stories there. That's how he kind of got. Well, that's not how he got started. He was a great storyteller anyway, but he was involved in fact, the University of Tennessee, East Tennessee State University is nearby, and they had a whole curriculum on storytelling. You could actually get a master's degree, maybe even a doctorate in that sort of thing. I'm sure there's a fancy name like Heritage Arts or something, but uh,
right.
he had a degree in storytelling and writing and that sort of thing from there. His wife did too, I believe. And they were the first university / college that had that kind of curriculum. They also had a heritage or his music class, and some of the students for that went to like Ireland every year to play with bands, Irish music, which was very influential to this part of the country and the mountain music and stuff. I knew a couple of people that went over there for that with the professor. He'd go there every year for a few months and take students and to learn about the Irish heritage and Scottish heritage of music here and bring it back. But anyway, the storytelling thing, it grew over the years and got to be pretty big. I don't know if it's as big now as it was 25 years ago or 20 years ago, or geez, I don't even want to say how long ago it was when it started, 50. But it has grown, and they do have a national center, and it's pretty interesting. The only thing I hated about that was they took over one of the buildings that had the old historic library in it. Well, they built a new library, but I grew up getting books out of that library, so that's kind of a soft spot in my heart. But
that sentimental side of things, yeah.
yeah. I mean, it was just Jonesboro was kind of an interesting town. It was pretty quaint, at least when I was growing up. And I had friends. In fact, another little trivial thing, that my best friend's house, the house my best friend lived, one of my best friends in high school lived in, was right on the main street in Jonesboro, and it's where one of the first abolition papers was printed before the Civil War.
Oh, wow.
I guess they had a printing press or something hidden in that house. And well, East Tennessee was pretty much a more union-oriented part of the state anyway. In fact, East Tennessee tried to secede from the rest of Tennessee when the rest of Tennessee voted to secede from the Union and join the Confederacy. So this part of the country was truly one of those places where brothers fought against brothers kind of thing. And the Confederates spent about as much time up here fighting the locals as they did the Union. It was a pretty big deal. And most of my relatives or his ancestors fought for the Union if they were in the war at all. I had some that were in the Southern Army, but most of them fought for the North. And slavery was not a huge thing around here. It's further west you go, of course, the bigger it got. But up in the mountains, people didn't see it that way. I mean, they didn't have slaves. For one thing, they were dirt poor, but it was a different kind of culture up there. But anyway, how did I go there?
Well, so is your friend's house a part of a historical landmark? Or?
Yeah, it is. And it used to have one of those big silver post on a plaque on a post kind of thing in his front yard.
Oh, wow.
And the neighbor's house across the street on the corner beside it was a old house. I'm not sure how far it dated back. It was older than his house, and it was multiple stories and brick, and it had may have actually been part of the old stage line inn at one time. That's where the first darkroom we built together, me and a couple of my other friends, and a guy that lived in that house was a little bit older than us, but we all kind of fished together, ran together some, and that's where we built our first darkroom, Tina. Back then we were primarily into black and white, but we did a little bit of color. We did a lot of black and white in the darkrooms in those days. What? We have the Lynn Project. You're sorry, but you overslept. Now, where have I heard that before?
Uh-oh.
Welcome, Lynn. Glad to see you here. You know, it doesn't matter if you
Morning,
oversleep.
Lynn.
You oversleep, you're always welcome. We're reminiscing about the old days, sort of. I don't know, Tina, did you find that address? Because if you didn't, I may have to. Oh, no, there you did. You did find it. Thank you for posting that. And if you ever had, I'm going to say this, she's not here to hit me, but if you ever had something you wanted done or a custom apron you'd like to have put together or something or embroidered or whatnot, she'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. And she's very, I think you'd find that her rates are very competitive or good. I actually fuss at her sometimes because I think she sells some of her stuff a little too low.
That's interesting, Tina. I didn't think that allergies would be an issue in the darkroom. I guess so.
I guess it could be. What were you, Tina? What were you interested in doing? Color film? Well, you wouldn't be doing films. You'd just be doing prints, right? Printing off digital. Correct me if I'm wrong. Your great maybe grandfather fought for the North and the South per discharge papers that we found from both armies. We suspect he was a spy for the South. Tennessee has interesting history. That's possible. But another thing that happened, Don, was they would get captured. There are a lot of stories out there where someone who fought for the South or the Union would get captured, and rather than go to one of their prison camps, which were hellholes on both sides, but especially in the South, a lot of times they would sign up to fight for the other army. So it did happen that they literally swapped sides in the middle of the war. So it could have been that too. But that, I know that's happened on more than one occasion. They used to do, armies and wars were fought different up and at least till about the Civil War. They used to parole prisoners, which basically meant you were captured and you could sign out. And if you said you won't fight anymore, they'd let you go home. I'd say that worked about half the time. I'm pretty sure they probably, a lot of them signed back up and went back to fighting. But I mean, who's going to know? Right. What the chances are you're going to get caught by the same guy? But it did happen, and there were people who swapped sides. I've read a couple of books where they talk about that as being a big issue, where they swap sides because of that. And sometimes they got, they conscripted soldiers to fight. The South was actually pretty bad about that. I know in East Tennessee, they would send conscription crews up here and take people, basically like the impressment gangs did on Navy ships or merchant marine ships in the ocean for the War of 1812. But they did conscript soldiers, and sometimes they'd get conscripted into, say, the Southern Army, and that's not where they really wanted to be. So if they got a chance, they'd defect over to the Union Army, and then they'd sign up there and stay with those guys and fight the rest of the war in some cases.
There's Tina.
No, well, there's Teddy.
No, I mean, Tina's back. When you had asked her what type of photographs, and she was gone for a little bit, so I didn't know.
Oh, okay. I hadn't caught back up yet. No, I miss the darkroom, Tina. I've spent a lot of, hey, buddy. I spent a lot of my high school years in the darkroom. We actually had a darkroom at school. They built a new high school when I was in junior high. So my first year in high school was the first year of that school that I went to. Our class was the first one to go all 4 years in that one school. But it had some really, what we thought were up modern things. We actually had a dark room. So I got into the photography group and took classes and was in the school newspaper, or shot photographs for the school newspaper, which got me access to the dark room. And I took a lot of pictures of some sporting events and that sort of thing. And headshots for the school paper. And we got to spend a lot of time, and that was an excuse to go to the dark room. I'll have to tell you someday what you can do with the old metal film cans. Does anybody besides me remember old metal film cans, Tina? That's for you. But film, most people in here probably remember film, if you ever even messed with it. It was in plastic snap cap lid, gray and black, or black and gray, or
I probably still have several of those laying around here.
I actually thought I had one sitting here. I just used it for something. I still keep stuff in them because I used to have hundreds of them, especially when I was shooting slides and stuff. But before that, they were actually metal, and screw-on Kodaks at least were. And you'd be surprised what you can turn that into, if you're an enterprising young man in high school.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. We'll just let imaginations run wild on that one. I don't want to. Right. Although I'm sure what is the term I'm looking for? I'm sure all penalties have expired on that. Statute of limitations, I'm sure, is run out many, many years ago. I love doing film and photography like that, though. We got to use a lot of different cameras. The school had a couple of cameras we could mess with. And I started out, my first camera was a Nichromat, or a Nikon, which was like the lower level of Nikons. And so I kind of grew up using Nikon equipment, which I wish I had back. Right before I got married, somebody broke into my parents' house and stole all my photography gear and a bunch of other stuff from my dad and mom. And it took me a long time to actually replace everything because I was getting ready to go off to college. I didn't have a job. I was in and out of stuff. I just didn't have the money to replace it with. And when I finally did get back into 35 millimeter, I went down a different route and had Minolta bodies and equipment because I guess, well, it seemed like the thing to do at the time, although I'm not sure why I didn't stick with Nikon because now it's what I'd really like to have. I always liked Canons, but my heart's always been in Nikon.
I'd really love to take photography classes.
Oh, let's see.
I have the vision for it, but I just don't have the skill to, all those numbers and everything. It just kind of.
Oh, you'd get used to that, though. Hey, Mike and Val, thanks for coming in. Good to see you. Have fun on your adventures today. Take care. Val, if you ever want to know what he's saying behind your back, just, drop me a line. I'll fill you in. Oh, Photomat, Karki. Yes, I remember those. You could get it in a day or in a couple of hours or something, I think, depending on, I don't know if that depended on what you pay, how much you paid, or maybe it was always the same. I'm not sure, but I know you could get it pretty quick. And he's going to Epcot, Space Mountain Dave. Dave, have a great time in Epcot today. Eat something good for us. Have a cold beverage. What was I getting ready to say? We actually had by the time I got out of high school, we'd built a second dark room, and it was we thought it was pretty fancy. We built the design and built our own water temperature. We used to use a lot of water in film development. So we had our own water heater separate from the home where we had it built near. We actually added it onto the side of a garage and built, it was just our dark room. So that was pretty neat, I'll have to admit. But we could regulate the temperatures real well, and because that's fairly critical in doing film. And we had 2 or 3 different enlargers. We had a really nice old enlarger. It was a Bessler. Back in those days, it was like a top of the line Bessler enlarger. It wasn't color. We could put a color head on it, but it was strictly black and white, but it was a big thing. I mean, it was nice. And we did a lot of that. I mean, like I said, I did a lot of black and white. I have thousands of black and white negatives still, the ones that didn't get destroyed. We had a flood when I lived near Nashville in the mid 80s. And unfortunately, a lot of that stuff got destroyed. And that was back before you could back that kind of stuff up on a disc or a card or, memory stick. All right, Pearl, go lay back down. Take a nap. I can't imagine you've had a lot of sleep, so you need to rest up. I appreciate you coming by. Oh, me too, Don. I love Ansel Adams stuff. Somewhere around here, I've got an Ansel Adams calendar hanging up, or it may be folded up, but I don't throw stuff like that away. I love Ansel Adams. And also, if you've ever seen any of his name was Edwards. I can't remember his whole name, but he did a lot of Native American pictures back around the turn of the century. He was a contemporary Adams, maybe a little bit before Adams, but he did a lot of really fine black and white stuff. It's really good. Dawn's got her thumb in front of her lens. That's you got to watch that sometimes. But
yeah, I'm kind of a fan of the black and white also.
I really enjoyed black and white because
it's more pure, it's
well, it seems that way.
Yeah,
it was, and you could do so much more with it back then. I could if you got into color back then. You could do it, but it cost a lot more money. You needed a color analyzer to put on your enlarger. It took entirely different group of chemicals to both develop the film and the picture. Now we tried it. We dabbled in it, and we had a fairly inexpensive color monitor to help, not a monitor, but a analyzer to help try to help us with our enlargement work. Because you had to use filters and put different stacks of filters in there to get color right, balance right. And but they had so much better stuff coming out then, and we were actually in the process of trying to get a really nice color head for our enlarger, but we didn't quite get there before we all moved away to school after high school. But black and white stuff was just, you could, like I said, you could just do so much with it, and there were so many options out there for film. I mean, you could have high speed film that while it was a little grainy, you could shoot, practically at dark. And you had really fine grain stuff that you could do for portraits and things when you had more light and more sunlight.
Right.
It was just, and then you could just use filter. I mean, you could just do so much with it on the enlarger, or while you're in the dark room processing it. We had a lot. Like I said, I spent a lot of time in the dark room in high school, and it was, it was just a lot of fun. That was just kind of the thing we did on a lot of nights and weekends when we didn't have other stuff going on.
Well, as you said, there was so much to do in the dark room.
Well, that's true. I think I've seen his work, Tina Marie, but I have to think about the name, but I'm sure I've seen his work if he was the Kennedy photographer, because I've seen some of those images. I assume you mean in the White House.
I think I've heard of Shaw.
It was just black and white, just is cool. And then after years later, I got more into color slides. I know everybody used to laugh about, oh God, he's going to show his slides, but color slides had so much more. Slides had so much richer color, especially if you shot Kodachrome. Kodak Kodachrome was just and incredible reds and yellows and stuff. Which is an interesting little factoid. Kodachrome film was actually a black and white film, and the reason you had to send it to Kodak for development was they had to put the dyes in it when they developed it to get the color in it. Whereas other color film was just that, it was color film, and we used to develop some types of color film in our darkroom, and then later on we did slides pretty regularly and mounted them and did all that stuff ourselves. They were a lot easier to deal with than color film, but if we wanted to have something printed, there's a whole different process to get a slide printed in color then than it is today. And when I first went back to college, I thought this was a great invention too. We had a machine that would scan color slides into the computer, and then we could download them and use them as digital prints, which at that time I thought was pretty fascinating. I thought, man, why didn't I have this in college or in high school?
Yeah, it seems quite a few of the pictures from the 1960s, a few of the colored ones are Kodachrome, and they're beautiful, beautiful pictures.
No, they are. I mean, a lot of the old National Geographic type photos and images from years ago were shot in Kodachrome. It was kind of a standard because of the color.
Right.
It was pretty cool stuff. I don't think you can even get it done. I read not too long ago that there might be a few places around that could still do Kodachrome if you could find it, but I'm not even sure you can buy it right now, which is a shame. But I mean, digital has done so much more in that regard for photography, for probably good and bad for more people. It's made it easier for some people to get involved. It's probably made it too easy for some people to get involved. But you can, if you can learn the software and learn how to do it, it seems like the possibilities are pretty limitless.
One of my aviation friends, he colorizes pictures from World War II, mainly aviation military pictures. And even though I love the black and white photographs, the originals, after he adds the color, and he doesn't overdo it with the color, but after he adds that color, it gives it a little bit more life to the picture. It's incredible.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it changes a lot, and sometimes for the better, sometimes not. But
Right.
I've got a couple of portraits hanging in my upstairs hallway, and in fact, I've got at least one of them scanned on my computer. But I don't know how to put it on here. But it's of my grandfather in his World War I uniform, and his wife, my grandmother. Um, they had I don't know if they went somewhere and had these photographs taken. Probably did, because that's how you used to do it. Go to a studio and have somebody take portraits. But they were colorized, and how'd that work? I wanted to get them reproduced so I could share them with the family. One of my mom's older sister had the originals, and I took them to a photography place here in town that specialized in that sort of thing, and they reproduced them for me, and they were colorized. They were colorized already because back then Tina, correct me if I'm wrong, or either Tina, but I think back then I don't know, they were black and white photos, and I guess they were painted or somehow added the color in later, and I don't know if that was watercolors or how that was done, but their color, you can tell though that they were altered after they were taken, but they're really neat photographs. I mean, they're actually good likenesses, and I mean, they're a photograph, but then they've been colored in, which I thought was kind of interesting that they did that. But that was also a thing people would, I guess, pay to have done sometimes. Like I said, I've got those photographs on here. I just don't know how to show them. If I could figure that out, I would do it. I'm gonna hit a button. If I kill everybody, I'll be right back. Share screen. No, that's probably not what I want to do, is it? Okay, I'm gonna have to learn how to do some of this stuff. T Marie saying, "What are you talking about, boy?" I was just asking if you knew about when they used to. They'd take black and white photographs, portraits, and stuff, and then they would colorize them or color them in, so it was looked like a color photo. Yeah, you could, Tina McNeil. That's right. You could tell it was different. Old blue eyes with brown eyes. Yeah, that would work. I told you guys last week, I think, about the photograph in my grandmother's house that followed you around the room. It was, I believe it was I don't know who he was exactly now. He was ancestor. He was family, but they had him in one of those visionette. I'm not saying that right. I'm sure portrait frames with a concave or convex lens or glass over it. So when you walked around the room, his eyes followed you everywhere around the room. When I was a small tyke and discovered that, it unnerved the crap out of me. But that guy always looked up to see if he was watching me, and he was always watching. Tina, always watching.
Always watching.
He's always watching. Mike Lakowski or whatever his name is. But that photograph, I wish I'd acquired that. I guess my grandmother passed away, but because I'd like to have it now. But when I was young, when I was a little kid, that portrait bothered crap out of me because that guy was always looking at me. Let's see here. Karki's talking about slides.
Every time I think about Kodachrome, I think about Paul Simon or Simon and Garfunkel.
Oh yeah, well Paul Simon. Yeah, that was Paul Simon's. Hi, Shelley. We were talking about photography. Welcome in. That's it. T Marie's she's got the link. She's got the lyrics right there. That's
Hello,
it, Tina. That's my song. Karki, I agree. I used to love slides. I know people used to go, "Oh, roll their eyes. We're gonna see another slideshow from so and so." Or if you came to my house, you're very likely to see hey, buddy. I still have trays and trays full of color slides that I should break out someday and look at because there's some really good photographs on some of those. I took a bunch. I was up in the Boundary Waters canoe area in the mid '80s, and I took a lot of pictures up there of loons. Of course, I was fascinated by loons because we didn't have many of them down here. In fact, back then I rarely ever saw one because I wasn't near a place where they would pass through. But I'd like to get those back out. I wish I'd had some more of those printed because some of those are really nice. This is my old kitty. This is Ted or Simon. This is Spooky. He's the Ruby Tuesday dumpster cat that my oldest daughter brought home. Aren't you, buddy?
Was that who was talking?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, did you hear him? He was down here at my feet. That's why I knew he was down here. He's like I said, he's old. He's a little cranky. He gets fussy. There's nobody upstairs because Brenda's left, so he came down here to see where everybody was, I guess. And the other cats, they especially Simon, the big boy, he got bad about eating Spooky's food for a while. So Spooky gets hungry if his food gets gone. He won't really fight him for it. So as you can see, he's a small guy compared to the big boys around here. Again, they grew up the same way. They ate the same food, but for some reason, he's a little bitty guy and they're big guys. It's all in the gene pool, I suppose. So, Miss Lynn, what are you up to today? Have you been out for a run this morning? Are you going out for a run today? If you're not, how come? Get your butt out there. Hustle, hustle.
Better listen to him.
That's right, Lynn. You better listen to me. Shelly, that's interesting. So do you have a local shop that does your printing? We had a place here in Knoxville I was talking about that did those restorations for me. They were called called Thompson's Photo, and they used to do a lot of that kind. I used to get them to do all my E6 and those kind of Ektachrome slides, which I was shooting a lot of Fujichrome back then. Any slide photographers might remember Fujichrome or E6 Ektachrome. The Fujichrome stuff was basically the same thing as Ektachrome. And the greens tended to be extremely bright and deep, and the other colors were washed a little bit compared to, but whereas Kodachrome, on the other hand, the reds and yellows and stuff were just, knock your eyes out, brilliant. Oh, well, good for you, Lynn. Is that a new run you've picked up, or is that something that you've been planning on for a while? And you're running 7 miles. So what does that make that is that a 10K? I'm not good on, I have to convert these things. I like Fujichrome, and I used to shoot a lot of what they call professional Fujichrome and Ektachrome. You can they actually sell film that is designed. Film is a funny animal. They make it and put it on the shelf, and it actually has a shelf life date on it. And for photographers, right, if it gets much past that shelf date, sometimes the colors aren't as good. They do begin to fade. And serious photographers, especially if you're professionally, you didn't really want to shoot that because it might not come out right. So they tried to make sure it was always in time. But if you're really serious photographer, you wanted what they call professional film. And professional film was made and then refrigerated, and it was always at its freshest point. There used to be a term for that. I'm sure somebody else, Tina, you or Shelly, might know this, but so if you bought for professional film, you kept it in your refrigerator. I would buy it in a 100-foot roll and roll my own canisters. I would keep it in the fridge, take it out, roll some rolls to take somewhere on a trip, and then I'd keep everything in the refrigerator. I used to go to Disney World with that professional film, and I would keep it in the mini fridge. If they had one in the room, I'd keep it in the mini fridge. I even asked for a fridge down there once to keep my film in. Or then later, I had this little cooler that you could plug up and would stay cold, and I'd keep my film in that when I traveled. I don't know, some people thought I was crazy. Hey, Dean, welcome back. But man, it kept the film was always so good. I mean, I think the grain was super fine. It was the colors would really pop. They called it ripe. Actually, the term they used to use was the film was ripe, RIPE. It was just all the age, the chemicals, everything was just right for the best color saturations and stuff. So as long as you kept it in the fridge, it stayed good until you needed to get it out and use it. I mean, you could take it out and let it warm up to room temperature and it'd be fine. But by keeping it in the fridge, it would last a lot longer. And there is the famous Meg from Mickey's
Yep.
Magic. Hi, Meg. Welcome in. Good to see you.
Hey, Meg.
Why do you have to refrigerate it? Well, it just made it last longer, Lynn. And especially the Pro Film, you wanted it to stay at that. It was designed to stay at its best ripeness, if you will, the best colors, if you kept it cold. And the longer you kept it cold, the longer it would stay good. And it just pros used it, so I figured why not. And it cost a little bit more, and like I said, I usually had to roll my own, which is fine because believe it or not, it used to be a lot cheaper to buy a 100-foot roll of film than to buy that many, 20 round cassettes or 20 shot rolls of film or 36 or whatever. And so we would roll our own. I've still got my film rollers and stuff here. I have all that stuff laying around here. I just don't use them anymore because, that's kind of past, and I don't even know who. I'm not even sure I can take it. I'm sure somebody around here still does slide film, but I'm not really going to. I would like to get back into photography on a much larger scale, but I would probably, I'd go digital too. I mean, that's just there's so much you can do with it. Ripe has a different
Meg, I will
meaning.
take that into Meg. I will take that into consideration.
What did she say? First name Lena is now middle name. Okay. Well, that jumped and got away from me, but I got the gist of it. Now, middle name Oric and last name Onyx. Orc, I mean. I saw something else in there I was going to comment on. Oh, somebody asked me about the film again. Well, even if you just took film off the shelf and bought it at Walmart or wherever, if you put it in the refrigerator, if you're going to have it for a while, it still stays better in the refrigerator. It keeps longer that way. The colors won't fade out. And I have shot expired film that I'd kept in the refrigerator and it was fine. I mean, I used to do that if I was just messing around. I just didn't want to use expired film or old film if I was actually trying to be serious and maybe do something for a project, or if I was shooting for somebody else, or if I was really serious about it. So
yeah, I would get worried about it drying out, basically.
Yeah, I guess it does, but it is more of a chemical age thing.
Right.
My mother absolutely loved Polaroid cameras. And there was a time when black and white Polaroids were, photographers and reporters all used black and white Polaroid land cameras, so they could get those images in right away and stuff. But the bad thing about Polaroids, especially as we went along and they became color film and all that, was they don't last. And I used to try to tell my mom, I said, these won't keep. You need to do real film and real prints. They'll last longer. But she liked that instant gratification. So she had some kind of a Polaroid and it spit the pictures out and she could hang them on her refrigerator. But over time, they tend to turn red and pink and green and you can't really see them much. And unfortunately, there's probably a lot of photographs of her kids. And when I say her kids, she used to babysit for a lot of kids that she kept from the age time they were 6 months old till they were out of high school. And I kind of wish we still had some of those because, some of those kids are still around. Yeah, Tina, that's right. It was the chemicals they would deteriorate. So Tina McNeil, did you work just in a store that sold film and stuff, or did you work in a photography store, or where did you pick up all that extra knowledge? Yeah, Don. I mean, I think you were here then too, but it was doing all that darkroom work was. I thought was, I loved it. I just liked to do it. You could be so much more creative. Hi, Cherie. I'm sure you've probably been back and I just haven't said hi, so I apologize. But you could do so much more with it, and especially black and white. Yeah, we could alter color of the black and white tones. We could print high contrast. We could do vignettes. We could burn in areas that were underexposed or overexposed. And we could manipulate it so much, which some people would say makes it a doctored photo. But I mean, it's just kind of how black and white worked. And I remember when digital was really starting to come out, and people were saying, "Oh, this photography's dead. All this stuff is not real photography." And it's that we'll ever know if a picture is real now, if it's just always manipulated. And I think Tina and Shelley both could probably say that that's probably really not the fact. I mean, you can do a lot of that stuff, but I think a lot of really good photos are just good photos. If you don't know how to take, if you don't have the eye for it or can't take a good picture, it doesn't matter what you can do to it. But at least that's my opinion. But there was a lot of concern about that when it first came out. I remember Photography Magazine, which I subscribed to for years, had a lot of stories about the digital revolution and what it was going to do to photography. And people would write in and say, "I don't think that picture on your cover is a real photograph. I think that's been doctored in Photoshop or something."
Well,
So I don't
and
know.
everybody wondered what was going to happen to Kodak. What was going to happen to actual film
Mm-hmm.
companies, Fuji and some of the others. And granted, they may not be making film anymore, but they're still around.
They are, but I mean, Kodak got plumb out of that kind of stuff and cameras, and they don't, they got into they tried to stay up with the digital age. They had digital cameras,
Yeah,
and they actually had pretty
yep,
good digital cameras,
they did. Yep.
point and shoot type stuff. They actually had some of the best lenses out there in the late 80s, early 90s that were on Instamatic, or that, what I used to call Instamatics, but, point and shoot type cameras. But all their cameras, there's still some out there that have Kodak's name on them, but they're not really Kodak's anymore. They're made somewhere else. Somebody bought the name, but I guess they still do. I mean, I don't know. Somebody tell me, is our motion picture shot on film anymore, or are they all digital? I'm not sure about that.
I think they're starting to. I'm trying to remember when they started that. Is that 2008? They started to add a little more digital into filmmaking.
Well,
I can't remember.
that makes sense. I'm sure it's cheaper and less expensive. Speaking of that, I mean, God, I know I say, you guys need to correct me. I say this too much, but I know the story. Another thing I did in high school through my buddy that we were into the darkroom together and photography together. We also used to film the football games for the football team. I didn't play football. I had other things to do back then, I guess. Me and Jocks never got along very well, pardon the expression. But anyway, so we would film the football games on Friday nights or, at the stadium. And we got up in the press box and we had a tripod and this really expensive German camera. And I can't remember the name of it, or at least we thought it was really cool back then. And, we'd shoot every play. You wound the camera up and then it would run for so many seconds or minutes. And so between every play, we'd rewind the camera, make sure it was ready to go. But then we would take that film and we'd have like eight rolls of film, 8mm film shot of a game, like 2 1/4 or something. We usually had it calculated out. But we'd leave the football game and drive it to this little shop in the back. It was actually in the back of a barber shop. And somebody there did film work for high school teams, and he would develop all the high school football films for the coaches to have on Monday morning. You would take it there Friday nights after the game. And I guess he worked all weekend on it. I assume he had some kind of machines to run it through because that's a lot of film to run through chemicals like we used to do by hand. But then on Monday mornings, or maybe it was Sunday afternoons, even we'd go pick it up and deliver it to the coaches, and of course they'd watch it during the week and show the players what they did or didn't do wrong or right. But we thought that at that time was when video was coming out. So some of our competitors, we'd go to games and they would have a video player, which we thought was amazing because they could take a video of the game and take it right into the room and show it. They didn't have to go to develop it. They didn't have to wait till Monday. They had it right there. And of course, we thought, which this is probably the wrong way to think, that, and you can use it over and over again. So you could record practices, you could record the games, you could always record over the film. Of course, that wouldn't be good because if we'd recorded over everything, we'd have nothing to remember it by. But we thought video was going to be the thing. We never did get to that point, but we thought it was pretty cool. That's how old I am. Yeah, I don't either, Lynn, and I think I hate that actually. I mean, I used to love to go through photographs and show people photographs, and now we just do it on our computer, tablet, or our screen, or our tablets, or our phones, and it's not the same. It doesn't have that tactile feel. You can't hand somebody a photograph. I mean, sure, you can have it printed and you can do all that stuff, or even print it in your own house if you got a good printer. But it's not the same as, going to get a pack of film and the anticipation for one thing.
Right.
And seeing if anything turned out. It was always you take 3 rolls of film in thinking you got some of the best shots of the world on vacation. And of course, you find out that most of them weren't quite in focus or not quite as good as you remember it looking through the viewfinder.
Yeah, a few of my air show pictures have turned out that way.
Yeah, I do too, Lynn. I love to go through old photographs, and I really like to go through old photographs. We've been trying to collect family photos, or if we can get a hold of them, bring them home, scan them into the computer, so we've got copies of stuff, from when our parents were younger. And Tina would probably remember this too. And going to the drugstore was where we used to go pick up film a lot. And the edges were scalloped or looked like they'd been cut with pinking shears. That was just how photos were. And usually on the back of the photograph, the paper was usually dated. So it might not be the exact date you took the photo, but it was the date you got it developed.
Yeah, I think towards the end, they started to put a little digital date on the lower right-hand corner of photographs.
Well, film used to be dated too somehow. I'm not sure. I have to think back how that worked. I guess it was actually dated when they made it. Maybe, I don't know. But it seems like some film had dates. But anyway, of course, then we got digital cameras and you could put the date on it. And I used to do that. I used to think, this is cool. I can date it and put a time on it. And I know when I took it and where it was taken. And then I realized, well, that kind of looks ugly though. It's on every picture I've got now. I've got this big time stamp in the bottom corner and it sort of takes away from the rest of the photo. So I kind of quit doing it.
Well, now on phones, you have all of these filters that you can do to correct any problems.
Oh yeah, I know. You can do so much. I mean, that's what people were saying about the early days of digital. You can manipulate so bad that you can just go out and take bad pictures and then clean them up on your computer, and you're the new Ansel Adams. Yeah.
Right. No, I would like to learn how to take
oh my God,
air-to-air classes.
Yeah, I would like to do that too. I just realized what time it is, folks. It is 12:23. We've been on here for 2 hours and 23 minutes. So my apologies if I've kept anybody from taking a nap or something.
Well, I need to do the same thing with my photographs. I'd like to scan them.
Yeah, I would too. I would like to go through my slides. That's what I would like to have, as a slide scanner, so I could go through my slides and put a lot of those online. I really need to work on that because I've got hundreds of slides that I could put online. You know, Lynn, that's true. The digital revolution probably did cause that. But, you know, there's a funny thing about families and kids. The older child almost always has more photographs than the younger child. It's funny. I think mom and dad are so excited they take pictures of everything. But then when junior comes, the next one comes along, or God forbid, the third one, there are less and less photos. People used to comment on that. We have more pictures probably of our oldest daughter than we did of our younger daughter for whatever reason. Well, Lynn, I'll stay on as long as you want to stay on. How about that? But I know you've got things. I know people have things to do, and I know there's some streamers coming on now or at 1:00. I think Walt's going to be in somewhere today streaming, maybe Epcot. And I know there's people that probably got up. Some people got up early to be here. They may have chores to do, or they may be like me or about ready for a nap. I got up about 6 because I knew Brenda had to get up and go. She was going to go to her mom's house. Sorry, Lynn. I've gotten too predictable, I suppose. Oh, what do you mean, God forbid you have 3? Oh, children. Is that what you mean, Tina?
Happy Mother's Day, Lynn.
Oh, yeah, Lynn, you missed that earlier. We said, and anybody else that came in later about Shelly. Yeah, you have kids, Shelly? I hate to ask that question. I should know that. And Dawn, I don't know if you were here early, but happy Mother's Day to all the mothers, past, present, and future. Well, Lynn, how far along are you on that? Have you started your third one yet? Because I'll hang around at least until you finish that one. I'm on my, I don't know, 5th or 6th, maybe. And look at my cup, Lynn. Ever seen one of these? I got that in a couple of weeks ago, and it's not broken. Thank goodness. You told me to be aware of that. And it came in perfect condition. I've been enjoying coffee out of it pretty regularly on Saturday mornings.
She's on her second cup.
Okay, well, I can hang around for another cup until somebody tells me I got to get the hell off here. I'll just hang around. I got a shirt too, Lynn. I meant to tell you that. I haven't had it on yet, but I got one of the Animal Kingdom looking shirts off your website. I really like that. Of course, it's white, and I'll probably mess it up, but because that's what I do, according to my wife.
It's a.
Oh, that's right, Shelly. I knew that. Go ahead.
It's the right of a mechanic to mess up a white shirt. I mean, that's
how
it is.
That's true. That's why I always heard that, Harley motorcycle riders always wear black, and most of that's because they were greasy from working on their bikes, which was probably true, at least in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
I won't get into an argument about what's good motorcycles, but when I was growing up, AMC owned Harley, and Harley Davidsons were junk back then.
I'd still like to have one of the Harleys from World War II, though.
Well, those would be kind of cool. I mean, I'll admit that. I'm going to just say it out loud. Haters can hate, but I've never been a big Harley fan. But like I said, when I was growing up and riding motorcycles and starting my motorcycle lifestyle, if you will, Harleys were junk. I mean, they really were. They were bad. I mean, they about went out of business in the 70s because the quality was so poor. And AMC had bought them out, and they just really weren't motorcycle people. They made pool tables and bowling alleys. They really weren't motorcycle people, and they kind of let things go to hell in a handbasket. And so they, they kind of went downhill. But then they eventually, they were on the verge of going out of business, and actually the company employees and whatnot, and the Davidson family, what was left of wherever they were at that point, because they were some of them still around, kind of picked up, and they bought the company for themselves. And as far as I know, it may still be an employee-owned company. And they started improving their quality. So while they didn't change very much and they were kind of stuck in their ways, they did improve the quality tremendously. And I've ridden a few in my lifetime, and they're not so bad. I may never own one, but I'm not one of those guys that can't wait to get his Harley when I'm in my 60s, because I'm already past that.
Indians seemed pretty nice in the 1940s also. Indians seemed like a really big deal.
Oh, they were. They were a huge deal. And Indians and Harley were extremely competitive back then. I mean, they were cutthroat. Oh, my God, they were cutthroat. I've read some stories and known a few people that even raced back in those days. And they competed neck and neck for everything, because it was, you know, the old saying they say about race cars and NASCAR was win on Sunday, sell on Monday kind of thing. And motorcycles were the same way. So you had, and in this country, you basically had two pardon the pun, tribes of motorcycle enthusiasts. You either had the Indian people on this hand and the Harley people on this side, and they were, you know, they didn't like each other. I never have seen this in actual Indian, like a business agreement or something, but Indians actually had the throttle on the opposite side from Harley's. Motorcycle standard today is Harley's. I mean, everything, the motorcycle, the throttle is on your right hand and the clutch is on the left and brakes on the front. But back then, Indian's throttle was on the left, that you can't see, and Harley was over here. And one of the reasons they did that was they said if you had that, separated the two. You know, Indian rider wasn't likely to buy a Harley because the throttle was different, and vice versa because it was on the left hand. Now I've ridden with my right hand my whole life, so I can't really imagine having to shift over to my left hand, but that's how they were.
That would be odd.
Well, you can tell when they're like that if you see an old one, because, you know, they used to have hand shifters on the tank or by the tank.
Yep.
And those old ones like that, the hand shifters on the opposite side. Harley's on one side, Indians were on the other. Now, what happened over the years was people converted them. They converted a lot of the Indians over to right-hand throttle and left-hand shift so they could, you know, it was standard. And, of course, now everything's that way. I mean, it's kind of a standard agreement amongst both. It's kind of like your cars, you know. There was a time when Cadillac and Chevrolet and Rolls-Royce or whoever, they didn't have the foot pedals in the floor like we do now, accelerator, brake, and a clutch, or, you know, hand controls weren't in the same places. And over time, they evolved where they all agreed to put them in the same positions, because it was just people couldn't keep up, and it was, you know, accidents would happen. You know, you're driving along with the center brake, the brakes, the gas, and you hit the, you know, I could see how that would just be trouble waiting to happen. Okay, who's leaving? Carol, are you leaving?
Carol left. I was just seeing what Lynn was saying. All the awesome moms in chat. They're, you know, speaking of motorcycles, there's a lot of awesome. Oh, this is going to sound so bad when I say there's a lot of motorcycle moms out there.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of great motorcycle women out there that, you know, they could pretty much ride any type of motorcycle out there.
Bye, Carol, if you're still out there. Thank you for coming by. We'll be here a little bit longer if you stick your head back in, but thanks for coming in. I always appreciate you being here. And someday you're invited on the show. Just remember, when you get ready to make a second appearance on YouTube, that I asked first. No, there is well, there have been a lot of women over the years, more women motorcyclists than most people ever think about, because they didn't get a lot of credit for that. But one of the first successful cross-country trips from the East Coast to the West Coast, I think that's the way they went. They could have gone west to east, but with a pair of sisters who had a sidecar, or maybe, no, it was a daughter and a mother, I believe. They traveled from one coast to the other coast with a sidecar. I think that was a Harley. They traveled on and crossed the country on a motorcycle in the 20s, maybe. I have to look that up. I've got the story somewhere here amongst my motorcycle books. I've got a whole rack of motorcycle books in front of me here. But another acquaintance of mine, I say that like we're old friends, but we used to talk a fair bit, and she wrote a book, which I'm going to grab if I can get it out of here without knocking the house down.
Lynn, I could see you riding a Harley. Like leather jacket, just riding a chopper. There you go. Just
you could do it, Lynn. You could figure out the coordination part. But this book, which is a really good book. Let me get it back far enough to see the American Motorcycle Girls from 1900 to 1950. And Christine Summer Simmons is the lady's name. And her husband is, I can't remember his first name, but he's last name Simmons, but he's one of the main players in the Doobie Brothers band. One of the original members who's still there. In fact, I don't know, maybe he's the only original member that's still in the band. But she wrote that book a few years ago, and it's great. I've always had that's another book I was always going to write. I wanted to write a book about women motorcyclists, because I met some interesting women at back when I used to go to please don't take that the wrong way, at the rallies and things I went to, because I ran into women doing things that you didn't normally see women doing. We met this one lady down there in Daytona who was actually a test rider. She finally confessed. We would see her in a lot of demo lines for different motorcycles, and we'd be riding something and she'd be in the line with us, and we'd talk. And well, after a while, we got to talk a little bit more, and we were asking her what she rode at home, and she sort of, she said, "Well, I've got a Harley." And then eventually she admitted to me off the record that she actually worked for Harley Davidson, and her job was to go to these rallies and events and ride other people's motorcycles so they could compare notes and see what other people were liking or not liking and whatever. So she just get out there and ride different stuff and didn't tell people. I mean, she didn't tell the representatives of the different companies who she was. Now, they may have known who she was, because I actually ended up running into, I'm sorry, guys, I've got my footrest is out of whack. I got to keep my leg propped up. I actually met a couple of other people who were doing that too. So over time, I guess there was a lot of that going on. We just didn't know. But,
Shelley, you're more of a winter wonderland. You're probably better off with a snowmobile than, say, a motorcycle. I agree with you.
Well, yeah, but you know something that's funny, Shelley, about that. You're not in Wisconsin, but I think it's either Wisconsin or Minnesota. One of those states up there where they have a lot of winter. Some of the how to put this, that makes sense. BMW does a thing every year where, if you're a member of their riders groups, where they do mileage. Every year people start at January and report their mileage for 1 year. Say somebody might ride 50,000 miles in a year, and they take pictures of their odometers. They document it, so it's proven. And almost every year the winners of that are out of Michigan, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota area. I guess once the weather turns up there and people can ride, they just go crazy and go everywhere.
Wow, that's interesting. I never would have thought that, really. I mean, I know.
Well, I didn't used to either, because
I
mean, you go south and west, you can ride just about year round. You'd think
that's
where the long distance people would come from, but most of them are. I think it's Wisconsin actually where most of them are from. We used to look at the chart every year when they'd come out in the magazines. It would be printed. So and so did 100,000 miles this year, which is a lot of riding on a motorcycle, especially in just a few months.
Oh yeah.
Okay, Lynn's can't be trusted in a golf cart, but now Lynn, a motorcycle's got two wheels, so you might be better. I mean, you either don't want to take anybody with you in it, or you got to remember you're leaning over. A golf cart's, easier to throw somebody out of, I think.
Well, Cherie likes jet skis, so I think we need to start writing down the list of Dear Santa.
Yeah, we do. Shelly is in Michigan, so she could probably use a snowmobile. I mean, yeah, at least part of the year. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier, Shelly. I was talking about Mackinac City and the fort up there and all that. So we were did a little history talk earlier, and I was talking about being up there and liking that area for that. Who's saying? Oh, Shelly's saying she never rode, I guess, a motorcycle or snowmobile. I don't know. I'm confused. I know. I always thought it's fascinating that people up in that part of the country, when it got wintertime, they rode snowmobiles just like cars. I mean, they just put the warm clothes on and went places because they could get around better in them. I know there's a McDonald's up there somewhere. It's used to be get your picture all the time in news or on TV shows or in the paper where people were driving through the drive-through on snowmobiles.
I'm picturing right now people golfing and Lynn comes flying over the hill in a golf cart.
And somebody comes rolling down the hill with them?
Yeah. Golf clubs just flying all over the place. And yeah.
What do you
sort
think,
of that
Lynn?
slow
Could that
motion.
Well, Sheree, that I tell you what, I have mixed feelings about jet skis. I always thought they'd probably be fun, but I used to hate some of the people that rode them. They were just not very responsible people on the lake sometimes.
Yeah, we have a few out here on the river too that when the months start getting warmer, all of a sudden they're out there in the river and they tend to ride in front of tugboats and or barges, and yeah, it's those people we really don't need out there.
I used to be on the boat a lot in the summer when I was working and as part of my job, and we used to have jet skis that would just get up too close to the boats and would cross in front of the boats or cross right behind the boat to jump the wake. And what bothered me was how young some of the kids were, and they weren't legal. They weren't supposed to be out there by themselves riding, but they were. And, their parents were just let them go, I guess. And what really got my attention was one day I was sitting in the gas station filling up the boat or getting gas for the boat. And there was a guy pulled up with a jet ski on the back, or we'll call it a jet ski, but, a personal watercraft or whatever. I think it was a Yamaha built one, and it had a 150 horsepower engine in it, which was bigger than the boat I was towing, which was big enough to haul 6 or 8 people. And he had 150 horsepower, and I was thinking, God, a 10 or 12-year-old kid's going to kill themselves in that thing. And about every year down here, we have some kind of bad accidents with somebody runs a jet ski into a boat or gets hit by a boat. Most of the time, though, it's a jet ski running into somebody. So in that regard, they're kind of bad. But I mean, they sure look like they do look like fun. I won't deny that. Well, Lynn, when you injure somebody, you sling them out on the pavement. I can probably see that. I've been on the pavement a time or two. That's kind of a rough place to land. Driving the cart is your favorite part about golf. Well, I could see that, Shelly. That's probably not that'd be about the best reason I'd go play golf in these days. Yeah, that is a part of the problem too, Lynn. You're absolutely correct. Although they around here they try to tighten down on that, but it's really hard to do. But yeah, I think you can, well, especially with jet skis, you can keep the beer on the dock and probably be completely legal, and then ride the jet ski off somewhere they don't really know. Wave runner, jet ski, wave runner. So much fun. Well, like I said, I believe they probably are fun if they're used responsibly.
I agree, Shelley. That is the fun part, other than trying to hit the ball as far as possible. But
Yeah, Lynn, let's talk about a little gravel under the skin. Because I've had some friends that have had a fair bit of gravel under the skin. What's really fun is when you go to the doctor and the doctor looks at it and says, "Oh, there's gravel under there," and then he gets out this thing that looks like a boar hair bristle brush and says, "I need to scrub all that out of there, so hang on tight." And he just takes that brush to it and starts getting that gravel out of there. Yeah, that's a real owie. I had a friend of mine that he liked to do first aid at work, and when somebody come in with a cut, just a regular cut on a finger or a hand or something, he'd always make sure he had a clean toothbrush or something there and scrub the wound. Well, Lynn, I don't know. You may have should have asked that before. You may have offered up your services before you told people that you like to throw people down the road in the golf cart. You probably got a little bit more business that way. I have found that, when you reveal everything up front, sometimes it kind of limits on what you get to do.
Well,
after the
what is
fact.
it? Dale, well, Dale, Corey, and Steve. I don't know if
Yeah.
all three of them go into one golf cart, but if not, Lynn, if you're available to drive a golf cart, I'm sure one of them will get a hold of you.
Yeah, they'd probably would. You could probably get away with it there, Lynn. For one thing, they're big boys. They can hang on tight.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could probably work that out. When I played golf, which has been a long time ago, we usually either carried our bags or we might rent one of those pull behind things that you put your bag on. There were golf carts, but we really couldn't afford them. But now there's a lot of golf courses where you have to rent the cart.
Right.
You don't have any choice because they're trying to get people to play through faster so they can get people behind them. Free lesson humility with each session. That's funny, Lynn. I like that though. That's I'll write that down somewhere.
Some of these courses they have it's like a mobile I'll call it a mobile bar.
I've
They'll
seen
drive up
that.
with the golf carts, and I I went golfing with my younger brother in Colorado before his marriage. We were all out there, and there were a couple of golf carts just driving around, offering up drinks. It's like, all right, well, we'll have like a rum and coke and see if after two or three, if we could still, if we see more than one golf ball down there, then just hit the middle one. So
Wait a minute, Lynn. What are you saying? Cart girls? Are you starting a business? That would probably go over well in
and
at
that
least
that
half the population.
and that's what they are. They're cart girls.
Oh, really? Oh, well, I
Yep.
didn't know that. Okay, wasn't picking up on everything.
Yeah. Yep.
I bet you would get good tips in the right golf courses. I mean, when you consider how much money people spend to play golf these days, I'd say tips would be. Cherie, I saw that. I saw where they had the robot caddy. I think Dale had that, or one of them. Maybe it was Corey, but you could rent the robot caddy. That was. I thought that was pretty interesting. I wonder how many places do that. And when I was in Nashville, probably the last time I ever swung a golf club, we did some best ball tournaments. I'm sure somebody here knows what that is. Three or four of you on a team, whoever hits the ball the best, that's where you start the next round from or whatever. And it was for a charity or something we played in Nashville. What I remember most about that was how drunk most of the people were that we were playing with, because they all had coolers on the back of their carts there. I don't remember there being any golf girls, or cart girls, but they, it was kind of it was almost to see how many beers you can drink in 18 holes as opposed to, who's got the best score. Because I definitely would know my game would deteriorate after a few beers.
It makes golf so much more fun.
Well, that's true.
But yeah, like I was saying, after a few rum and cokes, all of a sudden Okay, is this my ball? Okay, which one do I hit? Well, there's only one there, so.
I used to have some really old clubs. I used to mow a yard for this lady in Jonesboro when I was still in high school, and my dad actually mowed her yard after I moved away, but for a while. But her husband, with whom I never met, he passed away. That's why she needs somebody to mow her yard, I think. But uh, he was a golfer. I don't know if he was a really good golfer, but he had a really neat set of old golf clubs that were wooden handled and they were, instead of being numbered like clubs are today, some of them had names on them.
Oh, wow.
Excuse me, like Mashy and I used to know the names of some of those clubs. Like Mashy's was a certain kind of iron or a wood, and then they had wedges and just different things. But instead of numbers, they were named. And
Oh,
I've either got those clubs in the corner here. So I thought about selling. They were wooden shafts, and he actually had a trophy from somewhere, I believe in England, that he had won playing golf. But it wasn't anything, famous tournament that anybody's ever heard of, I don't think. And I'm not sure what happened to that trophy. I don't know if Dad kept that. My brother could have it. I know I don't have it. I always kind of wondered if he was, a professional golfer or something. He probably wasn't, but he was evidently good enough to win a trophy.
well, and the golf bags were so small back then compared
Yeah,
to
they were.
today's.
Oh, today they're huge.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's got a full set of woods and a full set of irons and a full set of wedges and three putters and all that. Back then, they had a pretty basic set of clubs, maybe a couple of drivers and some irons and a putter, and that was it.
I'm thinking of Rodney Dangerfield's golf bag from Caddyshack, where it's got the radio and the TV, and
Yeah,
he's got the tap in there. And yeah.
Lynn, that might have been the smartest thing you did. I'll have to say that. I probably would have to agree with you. I can imagine that you would get slapped in places you'd probably rather not be slapped in. It'd have to pay awfully well. Okay, Cherie, MB, golf is very big here. What's MB? I should know that. I know and you're going to tell me, and I'm going to say duh. But I think my brother still plays a lot. He played a lot more than I. Oh, Myrtle Beach. Okay. Well, yeah, golfing is a pretty big thing over there. That's true. There's a lot of courses over there. My brother, like I said, plays or used to play a lot. I think he still does. My dad played. My dad played some when I was growing up, but he didn't play a lot, and then later didn't play any that I remember. And I played with his clubs when I would go, and I played some par three courses around the house, and we'd go out on the municipal courses from time to time. But I haven't really played since, like I said, probably in the late '80s or mid '80s when I was working in Nashville. And I don't even know that I could swing. Well, I couldn't swing a club today, but even after I hurt my back, I was always afraid to swing a club because I was afraid it'd twist my back out. No, Shelly, I am not going to slap you anywhere and see what happens. Okay, Tina, we're probably all going to get out of here pretty soon. It is now, Jesus Christ, it's almost 1:00. I can't believe I've been on here this long. Can't believe you guys have stuck with me this long.
We had a great group of people watching.
Yeah, we've had a good conversation. We've had some good conversations today.
Yeah.
How far are you on that cup of coffee, Lynn? Tell me what your status is. Tina, I hope you have a great day. I'm sure I'll see you somewhere this evening. You're always watching somewhere. And
have a good day, Tina.
If I don't, then I hope you have a good Mother's Day.
Double dare you.
Now they're talking about smacking each other, or I just know how drunk men would probably be on a golf course, so I think you probably did well, Lynn. That's probably
Well,
about the next worst thing to be in a bar, not a bartender, but a waitress in a bar.
and not to say that it's any better. Sometimes the girls tend to, and I'm again not saying that it's all the girls' fault or anything, because it's not. There are a lot of drunk guys that they have no place in smacking some girl somewhere, or
Mm-hmm.
pushing or shoving a tip somewhere where it shouldn't be. But you know, sometimes some of these girls that they'll be out there in bikinis. At
Yeah,
least the,
well, I
the
mean, I'll
the
have to.
course that we were at, they were out there in bikinis, and
Well,
it's like,
I'd say that
okay,
tends to pay higher dividends if you can put up with harassment. I mean, before Tina gets completely gone, that's right, Tina. T2, I believe she called tonight. The two Tinas will have their show on at 6 tonight. Tina, is that on your show or Tina? Which Tina's site is it on? I think it's Tina Marie's, but I'm not positive. So if you one of you still here, tell me that. And Tina Marie's channel. Okay, I got it. Yeah, at 6 o'clock tonight, guys. The two Tinas are going to be on. We'll have Tina Stereo or Tina Squared. So by all means, everybody go over and watch them tonight. Lynn and Noel will be on tomorrow, I believe. Lynn, correct me if I'm wrong. And
hey
if you're,
Jay,
I don't have your link with me, but
Jay Nashville just stopped in.
hey, Jay. Um, Let me fix something here if I can. Well, see, I can never do this right when I need to. Wow, I am just. That's true, Lynn. I agree with you. Oh, and Pearl is on tomorrow. You're on at noon Eastern time, Pearl. Correct me again if I'm wrong. And I think Lynn and Noel are on at 5. Nope, 6. And I'm not Tom. I'm Tim. My brother's Tom. I thought we knew each other better than that, Lynn. Somebody called me Tom last night in chat. Did I have nobody in here moderating today? Not that I really need a moderator right now because I don't have that many guests, and I have the most well-behaved chatters in the business, I believe. But I thought I had some more mods. I guess I do not. And I can't remember how to do it. I'll have to fix that. I was going to tell you to post your link, Lynn. I don't know if I have it handy. If anybody else is still here that wants to post, they can, or send it to me and can, or let me know, and I would post it. But anyway, we've got several friends in the chat that will be on. Shelly, are you going to be on anytime soon? I can only imagine, Shelly. Well, if you can put a link in, by all means, do so.
Chris, hey brother, Dadbirds is in
Bruno's.
the house.
Wow, you must be you managed to get over here before we left, and which we've been here for a while. So welcome in.
Been in ninja mode listening.
Oh, okay, Lynn. Well, if you had it, I would post it. And Pearl, I need to go find yours. I might be able to get yours while we're sitting here talking here for a minute.
Hey Tim,
Yes.
did we say anything that we have to risk being a soundbite for?
I don't think so, but I never know. But I hope you don't know if Chris is. Oh, he has been in engine mode.
Yeah.
Well, I hope not. See, I haven't had to think about that much, but what the heck.
Yeah, why not?
I mean,
We can't have Jeff take up all the sound bites. We got to be in there a little bit. We need to catch up to him.
Now, Pearl, correct me. The next week is the Fox Hour. You're not doing that tomorrow, right? Oh, there's a link. So Tina's posting. And Pearl, by all means, put your link in here if you've got it, because I don't have it. I was looking for it. You could probably put it in a lot faster than I can find it. So by all means, post your link if you've got it. Or Tina, I thought you were leaving. I appreciate you hanging around to do that for certain. So what have you been up to today, Chris, at Dad Builds? I'm not going to say what you're building, Daddy. That's Kelly's tagline.
And there's soundbite number 1 for Tim Pruitt.
Well, I hope not. I guess that could happen. Okay, it's May the 18th, Pearl. That's why if I had it that way, I just want to make sure I was correct. Well, Tina, are we keeping you here against your will? I mean, we can if that's what you want. And you can swear you were tied to the chair. I'll vouch for you. Well, that's nice, Don. I'm glad it is, because I'm always afraid that my accent and my voice is grating to people. Grating. And so if it comforts you a little bit, that's fine. It makes it sound like home. I get that. I really do. My wife is reading a book called Burying the Honeysuckle Girls or something like that right now, and they're talking about mountain girls being crazy and wild and doing just all kinds of. I thought, wow, that sounds familiar. I think they're talking about Alabama mountain girls, so maybe they're all the same. Well, usually Pearl, we're not saying anything to get soundbited for, but there probably nobody would want to soundbite. Chris could probably soundbite me, and nobody'd want it because nobody knows who I am. So that's different when somebody like Tracy or Dad or Pete or somebody does the soundbite. Or I'm trying to think of who else does really good. Tracy and
Jeff.
His soundbites are much more
hysterical,
funny. Let's just say, yeah.
Well, and Steve. Can't leave out Steve.
Well, now, Lynn, that's a good point you brought up there, because I hope you're, I don't know how you're going to defend your case, but I've been working on my spider friend argument, and I think you're in trouble, but that's just my opinion. So it's in case anybody didn't know, sometime in the next month or so, or in June, I think maybe there's going to be on Lynn's show on one Thursday night, there's going to be the Great Spider Debate. And it's going to be my case for the spiders versus her case against, but it's probably going to end up being more like me against the rest of the world. So, but I will promise you that I will have good arguments for spiders.
I like to think that spiders take care of the mosquitoes. That's the main thing.
They do. The ones that don't get eaten by the bats, which also take care of spiders or mosquitoes. I mean, and I bet you are Surfer Girl or Cherie. I would like to meet them also. I mean, Jeff has got to be one of the most genuine guys I've seen on Facebook. He's really got thick skin, or he's pretty easygoing guy, because he sure gets himself in a lot of trouble, or not trouble, but you know what I mean. And he seems to take it all in stride. I would like to be the case of the spiders versus the people, and that is exactly right. I found a new T-shirt. I may have to try to get one before then. It's got a great big spider on the front, Lynn. I might have to do that. So do dragonflies. You're absolutely correct, Shelley.
Yep.
You've probably got some good pictures of bugs like that, don't you? Maybe I should get with you on some spider pictures before the big debate. Visual aids always help in pleading one's case, I've learned, especially if they're good photographs. I mean, how could somebody argue that spiders are bad if that spider happens to be eating a cockroach, let's say, or
There you go.
Some other despicable creature that nobody likes, like a
Right.
bee or mosquitoes. Um, I think that would help.
What are
What? What?
love bugs? Love bugs.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
What about
all the
yeah? What about them? Yeah, that there's no spiders, no spiders icons will be used that night. That is not fair, since I don't have a pro spider icon to throw in the window or throw in the chat. Um, you know, this has been a point of debate for some time, so we'll see what happens. There you go. Oh, a challenge to photograph. Well, yeah, they
I bet
are.
they
But
are. Yeah. Unless you get like a tarantula. But
I used to have a tarantula. Lynn, did I tell you about my pet tarantula? The girls named her Tranny. I mean, go figure. They weren't very original, but it sure was fun to watch her eat crickets. Used to catch those big cave crickets. We used to have those in our basement. I'd catch those, and sometimes she'd eat those because she had a respectable set of fangs on her.
well, and I'm perfectly fine with holding a tarantula.
Yeah, I mean, they're not really aggressive. I mean, they're
Oh
made to be
no.
really scary in the movies, but most of them really
Right.
aren't.
Oh, you set
No,
them.
no yucks, no yucks. Cherie and Lynn, no yucks. What do you mean, no Tim? Whoa, whoa, whoa. What? Why am I getting? What do you mean, no Tim? What am I getting noed for? We haven't even started.
Oh, we're gonna start
I'm
losing
going to
viewers.
show the brighter side of spiders. Yeah, what?
The good side.
Yeah, think about this, Lynn. Where would that poor little pig be today if Charlotte, the spider, hadn't been able to write his name in the spider webs for him so people knew he was famous?
Right. Right.
Think about that for a minute. Charlotte's Web. If you haven't read it, read it before the great debate, because that's going to be important. Well, I can understand that, Shelley. My spider was, I guess, maybe a red Mexican. I actually caught mine in New Mexico and brought him home, her home. We had him for a couple of years. She shed her skin a couple times, which was really neat. They shed their exoskeleton, and the fangs would shed with it and come off, so you can still see the fangs on the exoskeleton. Which one isn't a true story?
Charlotte's Web.
What do you mean it's not a true story? Kids all over the world have read that. I had a school teacher that read that story to us when I was probably in second grade. You're breaking my heart, Lynn. No, no. Listen, Lynn, you can't be the judge, the jury, and the defender. Somebody else is going to have to swing the gavel. You're too biased. Yeah, Wilbur.
Evidence.
Wilbur was the name of the pig. That's right, Don. Exactly. I mean, nobody would have known about Wilbur if it hadn't been for Charlotte writing in the web. And
Right, and Charlotte dies, and it's a sad
it's
story.
sad.
Charlotte
Yeah,
was
I mean,
great, and Wilbur had to take care of all the little babies, and
what are we going to call Jack and the Beanstalk about? As a witness for the defense or the? I don't know how's this work. If there's
Shrek.
litigators on both sides, I'm not
We're
sure.
gonna need Shrek and Donkey.
Yeah, we could. We need to
Yep.
gather some of those people to sit on the jury.
Yep.
I'm not sure who we're going to get to be the judge, though. I mean, Chris might make a good unbiased judge, but you might think he's biased. I mean, I'm not sure. We'll have to find somebody and make it fair. I could probably find somebody, but you probably wouldn't think that was fair. So Oh, some other made up stories. Okay. I see how
Ugh.
this is going to go. You're already sowing doubt in people's
Mm-hmm.
minds.
Mm-hmm.
You're already, you're looking for that. You're wanting this cold case thrown out of court based on evidence not yet. No, wait a minute. How did Perry Mason you say that? Facts based on not facts based on evidence not yet presented in the case. And that's just not really fair.
Oh, Tina said her husband. There
Oh
you
well,
go.
there's a thought. We might have him standing by Tina McNeil. We may have to do that. Okay, I'm not sure what Shelley's saying there. I see hearts and ML, but I don't know what that means.
Oh, Shelly, have a
Oh,
good
she's
weekend.
leaving. Okay. Oh, go get some osprey pictures, Shelley. I'd like to see them. You may have already put this in there before you leave. Have they already? They have young in their nest now, or is that even over? It could even be over. I don't know how far up north. I don't know how far along they are as far as that goes. Um, there's my teddy boy again, or
I
my
was gonna say
spooky boy again. I hear him.
somebody's being vocal.
Yeah, he's down here fussing. Well, now we're not going to drag Jack and the Beanstalk down into this. I mean, I don't think that'd be fair to. He had, so you're saying the goose that laid the golden eggs probably wasn't true, or the golden harp that sang. We're not going down that path. This is not about trying to wreck every fairy tale and story that was ever written. You weren't there.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
don't know.
Jack had enough troubles. I mean, he doesn't need to deal with spiders. It's all right.
Yeah, I don't remember there being a spider in the story. There was just a giant, and then there was other. Depends on which version that you saw. In Mickey, there was the harp and the you know poor cow and the. They haven't hatched yet. They're just returned to the nest recently. Okay, I didn't think they had yet. I don't know that they have down here either yet, but I figured you guys would be a little bit behind what they are down here. Um, it's probably time for come here. It's probably time for some birds. Some birds of prey down here will be hatching, and so ospreys may be. Uh, we usually have a red winged hawk, red breasted. Let me get this correct. Red shouldered hawk pair that nests right across the road from us just about every year. This year, I don't know where they are, but they would by this time of year they would have fledglings or young in the nest, and probably about to fledge or have maybe already fledged by the end of April. So you guys are probably a little bit behind us in that regard. They get started a little bit earlier down here.
I could see a house on fire and the house is torched and somebody asking, but is the spider gone? That that would be Lynn. That
That
would
would
be
be
Lynn
Lynn.
and the house, yeah. But she said that her whole family is on the side of saving spiders, so
Yeah, they tried to buy her a spider gift last week, and she just kind of blew it off, made them feel bad. I mean, they were just trying to help her out with her spider phobia. That's good too, Shelly. Do you have a lot of nesting eagles in the same area that the ospreys are, or some nesting eagles? Oh, much love. I thank you, Shelly. Well, I don't want to keep you in. I know you said you had to get going and take some photographs. I don't want to hold you up for that. But I'm a big fan of your photos, so by all means, send us something. If you get out there and get lucky today, if you see any good spider pictures, think about me. I can always use a few. Again, need that evidence to sway the jury.
I need to see a few bald eagles yet this year. I haven't seen any yet.
I've seen a few out, and we see more and more here now as time goes by. Spider gift. Well, I thought it was a sign of endearment. They bought you that special box with the pet spider in it, and you just, you kind of blew it off. And I thought it was kind of funny. I really wish you hadn't known what it was because I think that would have been hilarious. The way it jumped out and got your finger and everything. That's a good learning aid. Now we had a few eagles nesting on my reservoir that I worked on, and I found a nest the last year I was up there that I don't think had been reported. States keep track of that kind of stuff. Usually not. I don't know about all states, but we had a list of eagle nest sites because 20 years ago you didn't see very many, well, maybe a little bit more than that, but you didn't see very many eagles up here in our area. It's usually maybe passing through. Actually, the Dollywood Eagle Restoration Project people helped out a lot. They bred and raised and hacked eagle fledglings, and to turn them loose on the lakes around here and in the areas around here. Now we've got more eagles here than we've had in quite a long time, but it depended year by year. I've seen pairs on nests. I've seen just singles, but most of the time we would see them flying around over the lake. So, but I love eagles in flight, even if they're, don't take this wrong now, but even if they are fish buzzards, they're beautiful birds. I really like to see them.
I do too. I like the sight of them also.
Yeah, I like,
especially when they're getting ready to grab that fish out of the water. You know how big those talons are. It's
yeah, they can do a fish in there. I tell you what's really amazing. The real eagle in this country, and I don't know how we missed out on this one, but the golden eagle is a real bird of prey. I mean, bald eagles are too, but they eat carrion. But golden eagles are just, when it comes to catching things and eating them and whatnot, are just above and beyond a bald eagle. My friend that works wildlife out in Wyoming, he has actually seen this happen. Out there, they've got a lot more golden eagles than we do back east. And he's actually seen a golden eagle swoop down and take an antelope. And the eagle's talons can actually penetrate the skull bones of an antelope. So they'll grab it by the head and just pop its skull with their talons.
Right.
And they'll actually eat. I don't know if they can carry an antelope, a small one probably, but they'll eat on an antelope. They'll actually take their own game. Back here, bald eagles mainly eat fish. They will eat ducks sometimes. In the winter, you see them take a duck.
There's
but they'll also eat scraps. I mean, they're kind of a bit of a carrion eater.
There's still that one video, and I'm sure just about everyone has seen it, where I believe it was a bald eagle tried to carry a toddler off in the park.
Yeah, I've heard of that, and I've heard some stories that some of that wasn't true. It's possible, but I mean, you hear a lot of stories about that.
The video, there's a video out there, and all of a sudden you see couldn't carry the toddler away, but ended up dropping the toddler. Whether it's, I mean, it looks real to me just from seeing it. So
yeah, I've seen them. Now, Sherry, which one are you talking about? The antelope or the child? Golden eagles they're about the same. Bald eagles and golden eagles are about the same size. Goldens might be a little bigger, but they're definitely a stronger. They're what I'd call real. When you compare the two, they're really predators. I mean, they're really birds or raptors. They like I say, they take on more stuff to feed on than eagles. I mean, most bald eagles, they'll eat dead fish on the bank that they find washed up. They're opportunistic, or they catch fish to eat, and they catch pretty big fish. And they do catch ducks from time to time, but they don't really hunt rabbits or squirrels or or deer or anything like that. But a golden eagle will certainly do that. They can take one right on. Golden eagles they're pretty and they're big. They're not quite as colorful as a bald eagle because of the black and white contrast, but they're still beautiful birds.
And really, as far as the squirrels go, it seems that's more of hawk territory.
Yeah, it is. I just threw that out there because I was trying to think of animals.
Yeah.
Small hawks, woodland hawks, goshawks,
red tail.
Well, red tails will take a squirrel in an open field or a yard, but really
Right.
what goes after red shoulders they tend to be a little bit more woodsy flyers. Cooper's hawks, sharp shin hawks, they'll all take squirrels and small birds out of the trees or your bird feeder. People that had bird feeders used to just get all so upset because the hawk would show up to catch a bird off their bird feeder, and you try to explain to them, well, you're feeding birds. You got food out for little birds because you want to see them, and that brings in the big birds because they want to eat the little birds, and it's just all part of the circle of life. They still didn't like it much, but that's just how it works. Okay, folks, I think turkey vultures, yeah. Do they stay there pretty much all year? That food chain, that's exactly right, Cherie. Part of the food chain.
I know we have turkey vultures.
Yeah, we have a lot of turkey vultures and black vultures in this part of the country.
Yeah.
I know when I've been in Florida, black vultures used to hang around some of the parks at Disney or some of the hotels at Disney. They used to come up and steal our towels. You'd be outside, not necessarily by the pool, but if you were laying out in the sun near the water or something, they used to come and steal towels. Okay, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. I probably need to get up and move for a little bit. My hips are starting to get sore. So I know you guys have been amazing, loyal listeners and talkers today. I've enjoyed this tremendously. Had some good conversation. We can start laying the lines here for the great spider debate soon. Yeah, Cherie, I'll have to tell you about vultures. Maybe next time I'm on, we can talk about bad habits of vultures. There's some other things they do that we used to have a lot of trouble with where I work because of complaints by customers, if you will, or lake users. They have we think that young vultures have a problem with boredom, and they get into all kinds of trouble. We'll save that for another Saturday. Vultures and the things they get into, part 1. So, thanks everybody for showing up. All the mothers here, I hope you have a great Sunday, or a great rest of the weekend. Chris, I hope you have a good weekend. I'm sure I'll see you around somewhere. Hope you're feeling decently.
Thank you, brother. I hope you do too.
Well, I'm doing okay. I got some things to fix here in the next few weeks. I hope my knee, and I'm hoping that my hips, now that I know there's nothing broken or arthritis there, that they'll start easing up eventually. And maybe when I get my knee fixed, that'll help some too, because I'm sure I'm walking what little I am walking, I can walk straighter.
At this point, I'm just praying for a new body. That's all.
Well, that's all. We'll be right there with you. Maybe we can find you one here.
Yeah.
I'm ready for a new chassis. They can jack me up and roll a new chassis under me. I'd be good to go.
There you go. That works.
But anyway, thanks everybody for coming in today. It's been a long stream, but a good stream, I think.
And happy Mother's Day.
And happy Mother's Day again. And all you ladies and friends, again, thanks for coming in. I really appreciate it. Chris and I both have enjoyed the conversations, and hopefully you have too. So we will see. Chris, hang around when I shut down for a minute in the back room. But anyway, I'm going to say goodbye, good afternoon, and hopefully everybody will have a great weekend. See ya.